Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us at this regular meeting of the Madera City Council. Today is Wednesday, August 5th. The time is 6 p.m. And this meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order, which suspends certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. The City Council meeting will be live streamed on the city's website, and members of the public may choose to participate in the meeting remotely through an electronic meeting via phone by dialing 669-900-6833. Enter ID number 930-3650-3406 pound, followed by *9 if you wish to speak. Comments will also be accepted via email at citycouncilpubliccomment@madera.gov. With that, I will ask our city clerk to call roll, please.
Mayor Medellin.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Gallegos.
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Montes.
Here.
Councilmember Robinson.
Present.
Councilmember Hawley.
Present.
Thank you so much, Alicia. We will lead this evening's meeting with invocation from Pastor Josh Blair, representing the Central Valley Church. If you wish or you're able to stand, I would invite you to do so, and then immediately thereafter, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Blair. You with us, Pastor?
Yes. Are you ready?
Yes.
Let's pray. Dear God in heaven, we come before you for your hand upon our mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, our city council, our school administrators, our public servants, Lord, and we ask that your hand would be upon our city. Let us be the leaders and innovators within our state. Help us to be the head and not the tail as we guide and direct those in our state. We ask, Jesus, that you would have your way in us, that you would bring healing to those who are suffering, that you would bring relief, God, from this virus. God, that you would provide for us economically and continue to guide and direct us. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Thank you very much, Pastor Blair. We appreciate that. And now, everyone, if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Moving into the approval of the agenda. Before we approve the agenda, I will ask our city clerk to read the late distribution announcement.
Pursuant to Government Code Section 54957, members of the public are advised that less than 72 hours prior to this evening's meeting, item B9 was distributed to the council after the agenda packet was finalized. Members of the public wishing to view or obtain a copy of this item may do so by visiting the City of Madera meeting and agenda page located on our website.
Thank you, Alicia. I will also ask my colleagues if there's any changes to this evening's agenda. Seeing none, hearing none, I will call for action on this evening's agenda.
No move to approve the agenda. Second.
Been moved by Councilman Hawley and seconded by Councilman Robinson to approve this evening's agenda with the late distribution announcement. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much for that. Moving into public comment, the first 15 minutes of the meeting are reserved for members of the public to address the council on items which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speakers shall be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers will be asked but are not required to identify themselves and state the subject of their comments. If the subject is an item on the agenda, the mayor has the option of asking the speaker to hold the comment until the item is called. Comments on items listed as a public hearing on the agenda should be held until the hearing is opened. The council is prohibited by law from taking any action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda, and no adverse conclusions should be drawn if the council does not respond to public comment at this time. I do not see any attendees wishing to speak for public comment. I'll ask our city clerk if we've had any written public comment.
None received, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Alicia. Seeing none, hearing none, I will close public comment, move into our presentations this evening. And the first one is the Department of Public Health update. We have with us again this evening is the Director of Public Health, Ms. Sarah Boss. Sarah, thanks again for being here with us this evening and giving us a current update.
It's my pleasure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Great.
So as of today, we have a total of 2,208 cases since the beginning of the COVID event, and 976 of those cases are active. So you'll notice that we have a lot more cases in the recent past because those are still individuals who have been identified as still in isolation, that they have not resolved from their symptoms and been released from isolation yet. We now have a total of 36 individuals that are deceased. 4 of those are ones that we reported today, and 2 of the newly deceased that we reported today are the first 2 cases that we've had in which the individuals had no underlying health conditions. That was a male in his 60s and a female in her 80s. You can see the dashboard there. We encourage you to, of course, visit the dashboard often to see what's happening. And we still see, with regards to the reporting areas, that the cases are falling in a pattern that very much mimics population. And I know that we had a hard time updating the dashboard today to include the new cases. We do have a number of new cases in the Chowchilla area in recent days. I just want to touch on a report that came out yesterday that the state talked about an error in their reporting system. And that system is called CalReady. And there is a data glitch that is holding cases before they actually get to local public health. And so I just wanted to address that in case you heard it in the news. We do get cases reported to us through CalReady, but there are other ways in which cases are reported to us. So for instance, all of the test results for OptumServe, we also receive directly from OptumServe. All of the tests that are completed by our mobile testing clinic, we have those results because we are the ones who are managing those labs. So we still have, and not all of the tests are being delayed to the state system as well. So there is a percentage, and how much we don't know, but there is a percentage of tests that we are not receiving results for until the state resolves their issue on their end. At the same time, we still have a large number of the tests that are reported to us, and we are still following up with those with case investigations. So it has not stopped our process at the local level, and we await the state resolving that data glitch. At this point, we are still on the monitoring list. That's largely based on what's called a 14-day case rate. So it's how many cases over the last 14 days per 100,000 population. And we are, in order to be off the monitoring list, that number needs to be under 100. And right now we're at 430. We're meeting the testing volume expectations of the state. In fact, we're exceeding that. And our positivity rate at this point is 18.6%. So well over the threshold. The goal is 8%. In terms of hospital capacity, and this is where I think it's important to note that even though we may not have 100% accurate case rate because of this glitch that's going on in the statewide system, one of the things that is super important with regards to our response and whether or not we can see if our mitigation measures are working is the impact to local hospitals. So across the state, they are seeing that hospitals, the occupancy is starting to come down. In Madera, it has not yet started to really come down. We're still in the midst of surge. And so Madera Community Hospital, as of today, for their ICU beds, is at 100% capacity. For their regular inpatient beds, they're at 81% capacity. For Valley Children's, which of course is a regional children's hospital, and at this point, none of those who are hospitalized are actually Madera County residents. But their ICU is at 95% capacity and their inpatient beds are at 94% capacity. I'll note that at Madera Community Hospital, of the COVID patients, there are 38 COVID patients, 33 of those are Madera County residents. Again, we continue to reach out to Fresno County hospitals to identify Madera County residents that might be in a Fresno hospital. We do count Madera residents as cases regardless of where they received their test. They are still reported to Madera County Department of Public Health. Those are the cases that we're tracking regardless of where they have received health care. We're monitoring outbreaks in skilled nursing facilities. And we've got one very large skilled nursing facility that's actually in the city of Madera, Madera Rehab. And we have had 105 residents with COVID at Madera Rehab, 48 staff. And a good number of those individuals are asymptomatic. And so they are not experiencing adverse effects of having COVID, but they were diagnosed because skilled nursing facilities, it's mandated that everyone be tested on a regular basis. So we're picking up a lot of those asymptomatic cases at skilled nursing facilities. But we also have had a number of deaths of residents in Madera Rehab that have been reported as part of that 36 total. Also at Cedar Creek, we have 22 residents that have tested positive over the course of the outbreak, 11 staff, and we've had 1 death from Cedar Creek as well. We are, just in terms of our regular response, we have we're ongoing with our mobile testing unit, and the days of the mobile testing unit are available online. We've implemented a scheduling system with that to deal with the high volume, and appointments for the mobile testing are available 1 week in advance. We started doing some Facebook Live events, and that was really a success. We did one in English and one in Spanish, where Dr. Paul, along with me, he was answering most of the questions. And I didn't know if you know that Dr. Paul speaks Spanish, so he did the Facebook Live in Spanish as well, which is awesome. We're going to do 2 more Facebook Live events similar to the ones that were conducted before, and those are scheduled for the 25th and the 27th of August. We want to encourage you to continue to visit the website on a regular basis. There are links to all of the industry guidance, which is super important to all of the local businesses to understand what to do and what's expected under the state health officer order, and they are updated on a regular basis. We also encourage everyone to check out the websites that were developed regionally to help residents understand what to do if they have symptoms of COVID. Those websites are valleycovidhelp.com, HELP.com, and in Spanish, ayudadevallacovid.com. So what's there is the list of symptoms for COVID and what to do if people have symptoms. Because with testing being somewhat limited, people are having a hard time accessing tests due to the big need in our area. We want to encourage people that if they have symptoms, they can still take action even if they're not able to get a test. And people should not wait for their test results to also take these actions to protect other people. So there's instructions about what to do for isolation. And then also there's another page that helps people understand if they've been exposed. We get lots of questions, especially from employers, around, scenarios. We have an employee, they were here on this day, they got symptoms on the next day, and these were the people that they were around, and they need to understand who was actually exposed and not, and who would need to, if they were exposed, to go into quarantine. So there's a page there with a series of questions that helps people kind of go step by step and figure out if they've been exposed, and if they have been, there are quarantine instructions so they know exactly what to do. So I'll stop there and field any questions that you have.
Thank you, Sarah. Any questions of Sarah at this point? Yes, Councilman Rodriguez.
I think Councilman Montes had raised his hand first, so I'll let him go first.
Thank you. I was trying to find the button and it disappeared on my machine. So thank you, Sarah. So I've been getting, I don't want to say complaints, but concerns. People are talking about, depending on the facility that they go to, if they test positive, some people are getting a visit or a call, follow-up, some contact tracing. So if they're not, is that a result of the CalReady error that you spoke about? And what can people do if they do get, obviously, follow the guidelines, but what can they do so that you guys at the county know who they are and follow up with people that they may have come in contact with?
So there's two things. Over the last month, as cases have increased exponentially for us, we also made a transition to a new internal contact tracing system. It's allowed us to manage more cases, but it also was a big transition. So there was a bit of a backlog that we've been making up for, and then at the same time, we've also been hiring and adding staff. So we've added probably 10 new contact tracers just in the last couple of weeks, and we're getting them onboarded. So some of it is a systems issue where we've just been overwhelmed by the amount of cases that we have. We are still trying to get phone calls to every single person, but there are also issues with regards to labs and the sites that do the specimen. They may include the name and the date of birth, which is great, but they don't include an address, a contact number, and so we do a lot of work trying to track down contact information for people. And so that's been a problem as well. And there are, I want to say, about 10% of folks that we never are able to track down contact information. There's another 10% of people that we call them several times and we never can reach them and they don't call us back. Then there's another 10% of people that we get them on the line and they don't want to talk to us at all. So you've got about 30% in which we're not able to do contact tracing for those three reasons. And then in addition to that, sometimes with the delays, which is what you're referring to with the state, and just the delays of labs and the backlog due to volume, we sometimes are informed of cases and they're already resolved. Their symptoms are gone, and when we reach them, they didn't really go anywhere. There was no further exposure, and so we're able to just have that one phone call and close out the investigation. It's not ideal, but those are the parameters and the restrictions that we have so far with a system that's just overwhelmed. The one thing that's why that website is so important. And so we really encourage people, if they get a test, if they don't get a test, we want them to go to that website and follow the instructions that are there. Because the purpose of contact tracing it's two pieces. It's case investigation where we understand where they got it and who they were with, but then contacting their contacts. All of that has the purpose of slowing the spread. And if people follow the instructions that are on that website, whether they get a call from public health or not, then they're going to be doing the exact same things that we would be instructing them to do. So there are instructions there for them to go through and identify their close contacts, and even a script for them to be able to reach out directly and inform anyone who might have been exposed. So it isn't perfect, it's not ideal, but we're putting as many systems in place as we can to deal with the fact that the volume has just exacerbated all of the resources, both statewide, regionally, and at the local level.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Medellin. Sarah, I have two questions for you. Surpassing that threshold that we have, do we have any data or information as to what are the culprits of the continued spread? Is it just massive gatherings of people, and if so, is this the continued message that we're getting from these folks when they contact someone with COVID? Is it these gatherings that we're seeing within our county?
So we have lots of information to show that gatherings are a problem. And we have a site visit tomorrow from what's called a unified support team from the state. The Central Valley is experiencing a much higher positivity rate and case rate than other parts of California. And so the state is coming and visiting us to find out what's going on, what we can do, how they can help us. And one of the things that we're going to be asking them for is guidance for how people can gather safely. Because just telling people to not gather is not working. And we need to actually give them instructions for what are low risk, safe ways to gather, and really help people that, you know, if their aunt is going to be in town and they only get to see them every couple of years, of course they're going to get together, right? Like, there are circumstances where people will do that. And it's also for young people. We're trying to figure out how to reach young people. We're seeing a big trend with regards to people who are, you know, in their 20s or younger. I remember when I was in my 20s and I felt invincible too. And then there was lots of messaging that really this is something that has big adverse effects on older people. And so younger people are not taking it quite as seriously, it appears. They're doing a lot more mixing, but then they're going back home to where they might have a family member who's older or with health conditions and exposing them. So that's an issue as well. Our recent case investigations, because we've been asking this question to try and get better data. So we've been doing random samples where we do really, really intense investigation to understand better where transmission is coming from. And what we have seen is that it's really a mix of everything. We're seeing a person who got it because they went to the grocery store, and we're seeing a person who got it from someone at work, and we're seeing someone who got it from a party, and it really is a mix of things. We are in a place now where we have broad-spread community transmission of this virus. And so we need people to follow the guidance no matter where they're at, no matter what they're doing, and expect that there are people around them that have COVID who don't know that they have it.
With that, Sarah, is there compiled data that shows demographics regarding income, ethnicity, or what have you? Is that any information that can be released at this time, or is that not data that's available?
We don't have complete data with regards to demographics, and part of that is due to some of the issues that I talked about in terms of the system being overwhelmed, and we can't reach out to everyone. But I can tell you that in Madera County, we have a disproportionate number of cases among the Latino community. You know, it's the population is distributed a certain way, and the cases are weighted more heavily in Latino population than in white population, which is the other predominant group in Madera.
Thank you for sharing that. And anything that we as a council can do to spread that message, you know, and help, I think you guys are doing a great job with that. But if there's anything else that we as a city can do to make that more, you know, just the message itself, and make sure we get that across, whether it be Spanish or what have you, you know, just please, I hope we can certainly bring those numbers down. Now, the other question that I had was in regards to school's going to be back here shortly for a lot of the districts within our county. Have you spoken in front of these organizations, school boards, or teachers? And I have some constituents that are concerned about returning back to school, even though they have a classroom setting for them where it's kind of not, it's going to be with no kids and what have you. What's been the reaction, if any? I'm not sure if you've had any conversations with respect to going back to school.
We've been in constant conversation with all of the school superintendents on a weekly basis with regards to planning and really what should we do in absence of very specific guidance, because school guidance has not been great from the state level. There's been multiple guidances released, and one is really, really vague, and the other one is super, super detailed and completely unreasonable. So Dr. Paul has been working closely with superintendents around that issue. I actually had a phone call with superintendent, one of the superintendents last night, and understand the concerns that you're communicating with regards to teachers being concerned about returning to classrooms and doing distance learning from their classroom. Because it's important to understand that we're on the monitoring list. So all schools are going to be doing distance learning. We are not allowed to provide waivers. That's not on the table for us. And, but in terms of teachers being able to teach from their classroom on campus, there are definitely ways to do that in which it's very low risk and quite safe. And so we are in conversations with the superintendents, and Dr. Paul plans to work with them and try and do some kind of platform where teachers are able to listen to Dr. Paul describe what options there are and alleviate their concerns with regards to safety with COVID in doing distance learning from the school site.
Thank you, Sarah. I know we have an educator in the council as well, and when I speak for all educators within our county. So thank you for providing the information.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Councilman Robinson has a question. You're on mute, Mr. Councilman.
Hear me now? All right.
Yes, we can.
Yes, Sarah.
Yes.
I know that in the past, you know, they said that for cold viruses and influenza, we have to wash our hands, keep the distance, sterilize the area, wear masks, and also maybe a face shield. But are there any way for an individual to boost their immune system to ward off COVID?
So I'm not a physician, so I'll just say that the same things that you would do to boost your immune system at any other time would also apply to COVID. So you want to get lots of rest, have a healthy diet, lots of fruits and vegetables, antioxidants, drink lots of water. And so those are the typical things. If you want to take things like zinc and vitamin C, in general, those are not helpful until you actually need like a surge of your immune system. So it's actually better to not take those daily and wait and take them when you start to not feel very well. So you're giving your immune system kind of an extra kick.
Do you take those vitamins, vitamin D and zinc?
At times that I start, feeling early symptoms of a cold or something like that, I often do that, yes, and it is helpful. I can't say what their effectiveness is with COVID. It hasn't been researched, but in general, standard things that you would do to have a healthy immune system are recommendations that we have now in absence of, long-term research for this new virus.
Oh yeah, okay. Because when I was down in Huntington Beach over the weekend, like 80% of the people didn't have any face masks, and they wasn't keeping their distance. So I was by myself on the bench, away from the people, but I was watching them. So, and my wife, she worked at Cedar Creek.
Great, thank you, Mr. Councilman.
My wife, she worked at Cedar Creek. And you said there were 22 cases of COVID there, and
residents who had COVID, yes.
11 staff.
And I don't have in front of me whether or not how many of those have resolved and are now out of isolation. Those are total numbers since the first case that happened.
Yeah, I knew a lot of the staff, they quit. So I don't know if they reported, that they had COVID or nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Any other questions, concerns, or thoughts for Ms. Boss? And I'm not sure if you were completely finished, Sarah, was there anything that you wanted to add?
No, that's all I had. Thank you.
We look forward to tomorrow's meeting. Hopefully we can get that guidance and support on reaching out to the community. I agree with you. I know you had mentioned it on Monday when you were also a guest speaker with Mr. Lyle, the superintendent at Madera Unified, about gatherings. and gatherings inside and gatherings outside. I think our business community, we all know, is suffering. And I think from what I can tell, our local business community is doing everything they can to make masks required and to keep their employees and their customers safe. But it does seem as though the private gatherings seem to be a real big issue here. So we will continue to make that push and ask people to be responsible and to look out for their fellow Maderan. So thank you again for being with us this evening. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. Good night. And speaking of COVID-19, we have a proclamation. We have appreciation to give. As everyone is aware, back on June 30th, I believe it was, we received a generous donation from the Taiwan Chamber of Commerce, 15,000 masks and 3,000 gloves. And we have with us this evening the president of the Taiwan Chamber of Commerce, Jen Young Lin. We also have with us Crystal Kidwell. I believe she's with us this evening. And on behalf of the City Council, we really wanted to show our appreciation and thanks. We were able to distribute those masks to businesses and those in need. And as we just talked about with Sarah, we need to do everything possible to keep our residents, our employees as safe as possible. And those masks and those gloves, that PPE is just so needed. So we wanted to show our appreciation and thank you. Crystal, are you with us? I see that you are on mute. I'm not sure if you're with us.
Okay, I'm here now.
Okay,
Thank you.
great.
Sorry, I still couldn't get my face on. Alicia was trying to help me.
Okay, and my apologies as well. We have with us this evening Director Win Chow is with us. You're there with us too, right? Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kidwell, please, if you would.
Okay, I just want to take an opportunity to thank President Lin. If he's still there, I saw him there not too long ago. Just thank him so much for the generous donation. And I like to take the opportunity to invite him and his members to visit Madera. And I don't know, President Lin, that you have heard about Madera or not. And but anyway, Madera is a wonderful place. A lot of people were telling me Madera is a hidden treasure. We have so many wonderful people over here in this town, and we have one of the biggest winery, and then we have beautiful Yosemite, not too far away from us. We have ocean, far away, and it's a great place for them to visit. So I like to invite President Lin, if he can hear me,
yes, I'm here.
Okay, hi, how are you? Yeah, and I don't know if you missed my my invitation to you and your members to visit.
Oh, I heard it. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then
thank you.
Sure. I apologize. Our president, Sister City Program President, Chris Simonia, is under the weather today, but she wants to give. Let me just thank you so much for your generous donation through our Sister City Program to our city. Thank you so much, President Lin.
Oh, you're welcome. And we are very happy to be able to help. And as some of you might have heard that Taiwan has done a great job in fighting the pandemic. Taiwan has a population of more than 23 million people. And as of today, I think they only have 476 confirmed cases. And I think, of course, Taiwan has a different social and political environment, and that all contributed to the fact that they have lower cases. But I think the use of PPEs is also a major factor. So we are very happy to be able to source some of the masks that are made in Taiwan and be able to provide it to the community and organizations in need. And we thank you for being a part of our efforts to help.
Fantastic, President Ling. Again, we greatly appreciate the donation you made. We hope one day we'll be able to repay you in kind, possibly even with a visit. And as Ms. Kidwell said, we would love to have you visit and show you around our beautiful city and show our gratitude and appreciation for everything you've done. These PPEs are going to go a long way for our community.
Sure, yeah, when the coast is clear, yeah, I will definitely bring our members to pay you a visit.
Great.
Great. And then this council will be able to present this proclamation in person to you and your team.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Lin.
You're welcome.
Anything to add, Crystal, or anybody else?
Well, I think everybody looking forward have the opportunity to visit Taiwan one of these days. And we will, our president say, once the COVID is over, and we will try our best to organize a special trip to visit Taiwan. And, and in return, we also like to invite you and your business associates to come to Madera to visit. We have a wonderful industry park. We have a great opportunity can be provided for the people in the Bay Area to invest over here in Madeira. It's a great city.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you again. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia would like to say something.
Yes, good evening. Welcome, Mr. Lin. I wanted also to echo the sentiments and our deep appreciation to the people in your group for providing us a much needed help. In our hour of need, you have given us a beautiful gift. Those masks, I can assure you, went very, very quickly to our community, to our nonprofits that had the most need, and that could distribute them very quickly to those folks. So from the bottom of our hearts, from here from Madera, we want to thank you for your gift and know that you and your compatriots in your country have a friend in Madera. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And thank you for being a part of this.
Yeah. Mayor, can I say something else? Okay.
Yes, of course.
I got a call last week from this lady. Her name is Lisa from League of the California Cities. And she happened to went down to Madera website and found out the wonderful articles about the donation, from our friends from Taiwan Chamber of Commerce and through the Director General Mom's office and to Madera through the Sister City program. So she said, this is such an awesome story. So she called up our city attorney, Arnoldo, and asking what's going on here. So I think, there's an article, their new weekly news going to be printed on their website either today or tomorrow about this wonderful sister city relationship between Madera, Ilan, Sister City, and Madera. And she just thinks, she says, cool, awesome. Our relationship can be, built up this way, such a long way, and we're helping each other out. And actually, I think way back on 2009 or 2003, when either SARS or H1N1, I believe it's H1N1 in Taiwan, I think Taiwan had a hard time getting PPE. So our Madera Community Hospital donated quite a bit of PPE to Taiwan, our sister city program, to help Taiwan's sister city out about more than, I think, 11, 20, some closer to 15 years ago. So it's so interesting. Now it's turn for you guys to help us out because we had a hard time finding masks. So what a beautiful relationship we have over there. And I thank you again for you guys donating. Director General Mom was telling me that you guys donate millions of dollars to buy those masks to donate to the needy community. And we're just lucky we've been chosen by a Director General's office to receive those donations. Thank you again.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, collectively, we raised about $1.2 million and we purchased almost 10 million masks that have been distributed out throughout the United States and Canada.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And then I'd like to take this opportunity also thank you, Assistant Director General Mom's Assistant Wen Chao. She's on the right-hand corner, and she's the hero behind the scene, just like our city clerk and the city manager. And she does a lot of work. She has done a lot of work for Director General Joseph Ma, and all the arrangements, she made arrangements, she got permission, gathered extra donations for us. So thank you so much, Wayne. You want mute your microphone? Can you say something to Wayne? Can you mute your unmute your
Hello.
Hi, hello.
So,
Hello, everybody. I'm Wen Chao, Director of Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in San Francisco. I'm so happy today being together with President Lin of Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce. I also want to take this opportunity to provide some updates of my office. Director General Joseph Ma was invited to attend the Madera City Council meeting on July 1st, I think, to deliver his welfare greeting and say thank you for your long time support to this office. And right now he already returned to Taiwan for his new post in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Taipei. And his successor, the new Director General Scott Lai, already just arrived in San Francisco 3 days ago, and he wants me to say hello to everybody here, and then he is eager to have opportunity to visit your great city in the near future. In person or virtually. Okay, so thank you again.
Thank you, Wayne.
thank you, Wen. We certainly look forward to meeting him as well as soon as possible, and wish him all the best of luck. And we look forward to that continued relationship. And thank you. You truly are one of the heroes behind the scenes. We know you do a lot of work. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. All right, great. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, President Lin. Thank you, everybody, for your kind welcome. And our Madera has shown great hospitality to our friends from different places. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you. Everybody have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
We're going to move on to the workshop, but before we do, in looking at the agenda, item E1 is the Mid-Valley Disposal first and second quarter updates by Ms. Kwok. Which I'm estimating is going to be quite a while from now. So if it's okay with council, right after we do the consent calendar, we'll do the workshop and the consent calendar. Would my colleagues be okay with moving up the Mid-Valley report? As long as Ms. Kwok pinky swears that she will not go over 7 minutes? Okay, if I get your thumbs up, then I get the thumbs up from council. Great, I appreciate that, everybody. So with that, why don't we move into the workshop portion? This is our one and only workshop this evening, which is an update on the Caltrans project along State Route 145 from Pecan Avenue to Kosher. And I believe Mr. Helmuth will be giving this report.
Thank you, Mayor. Council members, actually, I will not be giving the report. Randy Bell will be giving the report. You already know him, but there's a difference between the last time you saw him and now. He has been promoted to one of our deputy city engineers since that time. So I thought I'd just go ahead and introduce him as one of our new deputy city engineers.
Fantastic. Congratulations, Mr. Bell, and welcome.
Thank you. I have a short little PowerPoint, so I'll share my screen. There we go. This is to discuss with you some preliminary discussions we've had with Caltrans regarding their maintenance project that they have on State Route 145 that goes from Pecan all the way out to Tozier. this project will is right now the schedule is planned for construction is planned for the 21-22 fiscal year, and they're considering constructing some complete streets elements on Yosemite between Gateway and Lake Street, and that's primarily primarily what we want to talk with you about. Their environmental review for the project will begin very soon here. We've had 2 very preliminary discussions with Caltrans staff and just trying to scope out the project, and they're trying to get some of our feedback on work that they can do for their project to kind of follow along with our downtown project that we just completed, the master plan that we just completed. And some of the things that they're considering is a road diet, which would convert Yosemite from 4 lanes into 2 lanes, adding a class 2 or a class 3 bike lanes, possibly some 45-degree parking may be an option. I know parking is important to the community, so we're looking at options with that. Some flashing beacons or a hawk system at 1 or more uncontrolled intersections, some street lighting, and some high visibility crosswalks. These are all items that we're discussing right now. A road diet will reduce the number of travel lanes in each direction from 4 to 2, from 2 in each direction to 1 in each direction, and this will allow for bike lanes or a class 4 bike path, I guess it is. However, that would potentially reduce that would likely reduce the traffic capacity of the street. So some alternate routes may have to be considered. And a traffic study, we will want the traffic study be completed part of their environmental review to look at that. If they do consider a road diet, where will that alternate traffic route be? From our downtown plan, these are the 2 cross sections that we came up with. The one on the left is the 4-lane as it sits today. We did consider a median island in it for at least a portion of Yosemite. The one on the right is the road diet, which is just 1 lane in each direction. It's parking, bike lanes or bike routes. So I just want to kind of graphically show you what we're looking at here. For the parking, we were considering 45-degree parking, but Caltrans I think would really they prefer that it'd be a back-end parking situation. So I just wanted to kind of show a graphic of what that would look like. Instead of pulling in with those first, this would you back into that parking spot and then pull straight out when you're done. In the past, there's been some talk about relinquishing State Route 145, and in 1996, Assembly Bill 2246 was passed, and it covers the area from Yosemite from Gateway to Lake. In accordance with that Assembly Bill, the city must agree to maintain the signs directing motorists to the continuation of State Route 145, and no reduction of number of lanes is allowed within the designated area. Now, this happened in 1996, and I don't have the history of where it went from there. It's obviously has not happened, but I did want to bring that up to you. As far as a relinquishment, alternate routes have been considered, which includes making 6th Street the 145. That was discussed as long ago as 15 to 18 years ago. Another option would be Avenue 12 or Avenue 17. Recently, staff has had conversations with the Senator Cabarella's office about relinquishment, adding State Route 145 relinquishment to another bill that would focus on the city of Salinas. However, it was determined that Madera was not ready to go, and so other items were necessary, and it may be included in a future bill. And like I said, the primary purpose of this was just to open up dialogue with council and try to get some feedback. If you have any thoughts about direction or guidance you wish to provide staff at this time and how we want to proceed. And with that, I end my presentation and turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Bell. I appreciate that and that update. A lot of great information for our community. Councilman Rodriguez has a question.
Yes, thank you for that presentation. Appreciate that. Now, Randy, what kind of, I mean, we certainly know that there's some pros to relinquishing, but what kind of cons would we see in relinquishing that Yosemite Lake, as far as when the city would have to maintain it at a cost? I mean, would you be able to expand on that?
I thought maybe Keith would be better to answer that question.
Okay, I'll be happy to answer that question. So over the course of the last several years, the discussions of relinquishment have gone, they've warmed up, then cooled down, then warmed up, and I think they've heated up to a fairly decent point in the last 2 or 3 years, wherein more substantial discussions have been occurring with Caltrans as far as if there's relinquishment, how might that occur? Is it possible for Caltrans to take care of a number of things that would be helpful to the city to reduce the impacts of the city taking ownership of the roadway? The project that you're seeing right now is one of those. In fact, another one was just completed, which provided ADA improvements on good portions of the 145. The project that's coming up, they're actually looking at doing resurfacing of the roadway, some additional ADA improvements, not necessarily a lot, but as that has progressed, that project started to progress on the heels of the downtown transportation study. So I think that study was it was effective in many ways. What it's done is it's allowed Caltrans to go ahead and have a toolbox, I think, to go ahead and consider with regard to this project. Is that they were moving forward with a project that was just an overlay, and then they started asking questions, can we do other things? At first, the discussions were more about, let's do, can we do some types of complete street projects? Is that a high visibility crosswalk or flashers or whatever? But then it was no more than 2, 3, 4 weeks later, I think, right, Randy, that they came back and said, we're thinking about doing a complete street type of project.
Right, yes.
Where it expanded even more. And that has occurred because local Caltrans District 6 has been working with their headquarters, and they seem to have gained some traction with regard to the 145. And we think that's fantastic, but we're just not sure how this goes forward. They're not sure how it goes forward. So part of our presentation tonight is to try to go ahead and get some input from council on what they think when they, or what you think. And one of those is, do we talk about a road diet where we go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes? That has impacts. That extra traffic needs to go someplace else. There's been discussions about 6th Street. Sorry about that. There's been discussions about 6th Street taking some of the traffic over there. And I was a little bit surprised by it. I don't think I had heard about it before. It represents an alternative, but what we know of 6th Street right now is there's a multitude of stop signs through there. The character of that street would change by virtue of shifting traffic. So is council open to something like that? Would they like Caltrans to pursue the other alignments on the 12 and 17 before something like this occurs? That's possible, but right now to some degree, we have a bird in hand. Perhaps we wait on doing anything with regard to road diets in 2 lanes and attempt to go ahead and get other improvements that council might see as being attractive. The additional pedestrian crossings, more street lights, hawk systems for protected crossings, median island potentially, where we can go ahead and start to talk about planting trees. And I want to go ahead and fill you in about trees. The master plan, the downtown transportation study talked about putting some trees in some specific locations, and they kind of backed us up on our expectations there as they relate to some areas, because they were concerned about the trees and the water and how they might affect basements next to the street. But that's the sort of thing that we're looking for is, does council have a preference? If we do bike lanes and 4 lanes, parking would need to go on that street. Staff doesn't see that as a necessarily an attractive idea. We've mentioned that we do have east-west access using 6th Street. We do have a bike lane through there. It's just a matter of getting cross connection between 6th Street and Yosemite to go ahead and get better multimodal access. Anyway, with that, I'll stop rambling, and if you have any thoughts, we'd be happy to hear them.
Oh, thank you, Keith. And I guess with the warming up and cooling down, I guess at the end of the day is I'm wanting to know if we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot if we relinquish that or allow these improvements to happen by virtue of Caltrans.
Good question. Would we be shooting ourselves in the foot? I think if we had done it many years ago, without having some of the things that are happening right now, we might have been shooting ourselves in the foot. That was the concern would have been, they give us a roadway and they say, here it is. And by the way, there's millions of dollars worth of accrued improvements that we have to go ahead and take care of. It's the wheelchair ramps, some of them taken care of. It's the fact that the roadway needs to be overlaid and whatever else we may not be aware of. So we're getting much into a better position. I know discussions that have occurred recently, I think the mayor was involved in those, they were talking to Caltrans about the potential for additional funding for a transitional period. The relinquishment occurs, but it's just not a cold relinquishment where it is, here it is, they give us additional monies to maintain over the course of a number of years, perhaps 10.
And with the relinquishment, Keith, is there any mitigation that we can apply for, any type of funding with that?
Well, that might be the additional transitional funding.
Okay.
We would always, things have changed for this city and many cities over the course of the last few years with the RMRA funding. I won't attempt to go ahead and get the bill number. But with that, we're receiving additional funds to go ahead and maintain streets. If this had happened a few years ago without RMRA funds, we'd be in worse situation. So we're better situated than we were before. I don't necessarily see any downsides right now. The downside to not relinquishing is that Caltrans, they have to approve every little thing that we might do. So when we talked about if we want to do bulb outs, they need to approve of those as an example. If they were to do some of that right now, they might make adjustments in signal timing and the like to go ahead and accommodate some of those changes.
Thank you, Keith. And again, thank you, Randy, for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. We have 2 questions up. One of them first is Mayor Pro Tem Garcia, and then will be Councilman Robinson.
This is very exciting for the city of Madera. I've been hearing for years that we have not been able to move, and we place the blame squarely on Caltrans. And even the fact that they're willing to discuss these with us and move forward for the improvement of the downtown area and the Yosemite Avenue is a plus. Is a plus for us, definitely. During the election cycle of 2018, Senator Caballero came to town and wanted to meet with folks, and we organized a community gathering of folks to ask questions and converse with her and really do a lot of education on her part about what Madera looks like and what it needs. And the #1 top of the list was downtown. And of course, the wheels of government turn slowly, but they do turn. And I'm very heartened by the fact that Senator Caballero's office is looking at this. And even if nothing is done this year from her office, if they're looking for that in the future, then this is exactly what the town of Madera is looking for. It's one of their high needs and high priorities on the list of things to do. So thank you very much for this. This is very, very encouraging. And hopefully we can get something done. I did want to, if you go back to that slide, please, regarding reverse parking. I know a lot of my friends and family they're good drivers, but I'm not sure they can handle that. The stress levels of driving down the center of Yosemite Avenue is hard enough for people because there's a lot of ruts in the road, a lot of potholes. But looking at something like this, I'm just off the top of my head, I'm not sure how that would work. I frankly have not seen that anywhere. I don't know if any of my colleagues or any of you have seen this type of proposal.
I could say that about 10, 12 years ago, one of the former police chiefs was considering the potential for reverse back-in lanes, and they do have their benefits. And Randy, I don't know, maybe you want to go ahead and talk about the benefits, whether you read about them. Otherwise, I'll be going from memory.
I'm sorry, there's noise out here. I couldn't hear that.
Oh, I think our cleaning crew may have showed up.
Apologize.
Randy, do you want to take the question of backup parking? I can take it, but I'll be going based on memory.
I really haven't seen much of it, and I don't think I've ever done it off a street like that. So I don't really have much thoughts or much to say about that.
I'll go ahead and say what I remember then. So one of the benefits of backup parking is it's more safe for bicyclists. So if you have a bike lane going down the street, what happens here is a person backs into the space, obviously, so they have no choice but to look behind them before they back into the space. And when they pull out of the space, if there are bikes on the street, they're much more able to see vehicles coming at them or bicycles coming at them that way. That's one of the benefits. Now I think there are other benefits, but that's where my memory starts to fail me because it's been a few years since I reviewed them myself.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I have a question.
I'm going to ask Mayor Pro Tem to complete, and then Councilman Robinson would be next, and you can be after him, Councilman Hawley.
All right.
Oh yes, that was it. I'm very happy to be seeing something move forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for those comments, Councilman Robinson, and then Councilman Hawley.
Yes, I was concerned about two items. First, the back end parking. I believe that would hold up traffic. And we want a steady flow of traffic, and then not too many people are used to backing into a parking space. There's going to be more accidents, dings, and then maybe the parking should be on the side streets, and maybe we need to build a parking lot for more cars on the side, and maybe we just close traffic too on Yosemite, like some city, they close traffic just for pedestrians only. And then again, my next question is those sidewalks. I believe they have underground caverns and basements. But I believe one time one of the sidewalks caved in and someone almost fell into the hole. Can you address that?
Let's see. One of your concerns was with regard to the back-end spaces.
Yes.
Yes, it is possible that back-end spaces slow down traffic, but I'm not sure that they would necessarily slow down traffic any more than parallel parking. Because one of the things about parallel parking is if it's a busy section of the street, the drivers have to go ahead and pull up a space and then crank the wheel and back in. And sometimes that's a back and forth type of procedure. I'm pretty sure that the backup spaces are equivalent to or not too far off from parallel parking, at least in busy situations. With regard to the sidewalk, I think I'm only remembering two questions right now. If I forget something, bring me back. With regard to the sidewalks, there are basements underneath. It's been the city's opinion that Caltrans is responsible for the basements. So a relinquishment might make the city responsible for those to some degree. We might want to go ahead and vet any concerns that are associated with that. So when you talk about the basements, you talk about the sidewalk, and the sidewalk through there isn't all ADA. I'm not sure what the percentage is, but anything that goes beyond 2% is non-ADA standard, and over time would likely need to be replaced.
You know, like when I saw you that time in Sacramento, Old Town Sacramento.
Back up.
Right, I'm not finished yet.
No, back your body up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. So anyway, remember they had the wooden sidewalks. You know, it had the old feel of being back in 1859.
I do.
You know, maybe the art council might come up with some architecture. You know, firm might, give us a different twist of what to do with this downtown area.
Yeah, those things are always possible. From the engineering department, we're perfectly willing to listen to any proposals.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. I appreciate that. Councilman Hawley, and then Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What I find out to be is that backup parking is the wrong thing to have because of the emission control. A lot of people setting their cars and they let their cars idle, and if you got storefronts, a lot of those fumes are going to go into most of the stores downtown. But to my counterparts, this is not the first time this thing came up, because years ago, the other route they was talking about was 6th Street. So this has been going on for several years now, what they want to do with downtown. I'm just glad to see now that Caltrans is ready to relinquish it. With all the problems that they've been having over the years, they're probably trying to find a quick fix way to get out of it. Because there's a lot of issues that need to be talked about, and I know some of them are being talked about tonight, but they haven't really got to the meat of it, while Caltrans now is trying to let us have that roadway. 2 lanes is good, as long as you don't have backup parking, because that's going to be a nightmare in itself. People backing into other cars and trying to get straight. So I would love to see them just going straight, not parallel, but straight parking. It makes it a lot easier and simpler. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. For clarity, Caltrans isn't the staff that we're dealing with at Caltrans. They are not suggesting that they are pursuing relinquishment. We talked to them about the possibilities of relinquishment, and they just responded by pulling up that one bill. They haven't, at least from who we're talking to, they haven't said they have direction to work towards relinquishment. They may, but.
Okay, because I know they were hesitant for a long time there.
And just for clarification, this is just an update. We're not deciding on anything this evening. I welcome everybody's discussion and everybody's viewpoints. We've had multiple discussions about this. We've had multiple discussions about this, and we need to continue to have multiple discussions about downtown. But just for the record, this is simply an update. We certainly could have a little more in-depth discussion as it comes to actually direction on where we go. That being said, Councilman Rodriguez has his hand up. After that will be Councilman Montes, and then Councilman Robinson has something else to add. Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Medellin, and thank you for pointing that out. This is only an update, but I do want to comment on the back parking, only because you look at the vehicles from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and obviously, technology has changed right before our eyes. So within the next 5-10 years, you'll probably see more AI that'll do that for you and back park electric cars. So you can mitigate the issue with emissions, mitigate the issue with back parking. I think, engineers look at it this way as what's the safest thing to do when it comes to bike lanes and or pedestrians, because this is a place where people will want to congregate or come together in a place like a downtown. So I think it's whatever, I'm certainly open. Again, this is only discussion, but my comment in regards to that, technology is changing so fast, so rapidly that within the next, we got to look at Madera in the next 10, 15, 30 years from now. And I can assure you that by that time, you will have a lot of AI, a lot of technology that will certainly be able to mitigate for those issues and concerns that we bring up today. My comments.
Thank you for that. I agree, Mr. Councilman. You're right. Where we're going to be, where we were 10 years ago compared to now, and where we're going to be in another 10 years is probably something we really can't imagine. Councilman Montes.
Yeah, my comment was gonna be: have you seen people try to parallel park on Yosemite when people are flying by? But no, I think it sounds like it's a good idea. And staff would really like to see the recommendations, what they come up with, and some of the data. Because I know Keith isn't really going to make a recommendation without doing a study and telling us how many people come in the morning, how many people come in the afternoon, how many people make a right-hand turn, a left-hand turn. So Keith's pretty good about getting all that data, and then we can actually make the decision: hey, is this safer? It doesn't sound like Caltrans would recommend something that is less safe than what is currently there. So I mean, there's usually a reason for it, but I look forward to seeing some of the data that comes out. I'm sure Keith has it, just waiting to unload on us. But
no, I don't.
But I mean, this seems like a good thing. I'm all for having more discretion and control over what happens in our city. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Appreciate it. Councilman Robinson. And you're on mute, sir.
All right. I was thinking off the top of my head about rerouting 145 to like Tozer to Sunrise. Is that a possibility?
It has not been considered. The alternatives that have been discussed, the ones that I knew of before, was the potential for Avenue 17, which would, much like right now, actually it's a little bit different. Right now you come into the city along Madera Avenue and then cross over and take Gateway over to Yosemite. In the case of Avenue 17, they would get off the one off of Madera Avenue, take the freeway down to Avenue 17, then head east, jump over the railroad tracks and the river, and then make a connection. Avenue 17 is shown as a loop road within our general plan circulation element. As such, it's intended to go ahead and carry additional traffic. Is it worthy of highway status? I'm not sure. Highway status affects everything. The other was Avenue 12, going through the ranchos, and then potentially it changed over time from what I heard to going around the ranchos. For those particular scenarios, we would have the 145 completely for the most part, completely out of town. One partial and one partial and one mostly. 6th Street, I don't know what I think about that. That's an option regardless of complete street or not complete street. I just don't know what I think about it. It means that you have a series of hard left or right turns to go ahead and move through the city. 6th Street would have a different character, and I just don't see how that would go at this point.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. And we can wrap this up. Just some final comments. The reason we're having this discussion is because we actually were awarded the Caltrans Master Plan grant so that we can hire a consultant and do this, which we've had done that already. They've reached out to the community. There's been a number of people that have given their census on what they feel downtown should be like. In my opinion, I like what you said, Keith, about having a bird in the hand. As we talk about relinquishment, as we talk about moving it over to 6th Street, these are discussions that we still need to keep in mind, but we have an opportunity here to do something with downtown. And I think the discussion about bulb outs, I think the discussion about public safety right-of-way, when we approved and got transportation funding for the C and 5th Street projects, the 48-unit housing, it was because of walkability and money that we were going to spend on sidewalks and bike lanes. These are things that I feel we can do on the immediate. Part of the reason why Ana Caballero's office reached out to us and that unfortunately we're not able to do anything now is simply because we just have so many irons in the fire, but we're not producing anything. So I agree with you, Keith. I think we need to take issue with some of those things that we can fix on the immediate, some of those things that don't cost 30, 40, $50 million, but maybe less. And to my last point, it's going to cost money. And if we don't have a plan in place that spells out something that we can do in the immediate, there'll never be enough money there. So I think we need to take that bird in the hand. And again, I'm not saying to not discuss relinquishment, but the Hawk, I think, is a great idea we can do. There's been discussion about the landscape medians. I know that the parade may be an issue or drainage may be an issue, but I think 4th Street and what we did in front of the Catholic Church looks beautiful. Artwork can be done in some of these areas and some of the alleys. I think we're all spoiled in not only downtown, but no matter where we shop, we want to park right on the front door of where we're going to shop. And in downtown Madera, we have multiple parking places just 1 block away, but people still want to park. I know I do. When I go to Tijuana's Bar and Grill, I want to park right there in the center in front. So I suggest that moving forward, we take that bird in hand, we put together a plan, and we start to invest, although it may be little, it's tip of the iceberg, but we start to invest in our downtown and do something, get something done, find that funding. Let's scratch the surface, but let's do something and not waste that master plan that we've got from Caltrans.
Sure.
Those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much. I'd like to go ahead and just confirm a couple things. I heard back and forth on the back end parking. Caltrans appears as though if they're going to allow 45-degree parking, it's only back in. Do we have a consensus from council as to whether we should pursue 45-degree parking?
What does the impact have when we go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes? What does that have on 4th Street and 6th Street?
With regard to, well, I think it may be 2 different questions. The 45-degree parking allows us to go ahead and get additional parking spaces on Yosemite if we have to go ahead and lose some because of bike lanes. I don't know whether Caltrans is going to be insisting on the bike lanes right now. They seem to be fairly serious about it. And then I reminded them that we have 6th Street with regard to the bike lanes. But I'm kind of looking for the options. If it's a no-go on 45-degree parking, then we'll go ahead and tell them we're not really all that serious about it, pushing it.
Councilman Montes, you have something to add?
Is that the only option on the periphery or on the outside? Is there anything that we can do like in the middle of the street, parking in the middle?
I don't think we have enough right of way. That would we do have options there. In fact, I do have a picture sitting here on my screen with parking in the middle, but it doesn't necessarily have bike lanes. I'll be happy to go ahead and share it with you. There are a lot of there are possibilities of doing many different things. That's an example, but you'll see that it's a single lane each direction, and it's got a decent amount of parking, but does not have the bike lanes. Anything's possible that hasn't been discussed, and perhaps it's a bit premature to be looking for conclusions on this. We're trying to test the waters because while we're talking to Caltrans, we don't want to arbitrarily let them move forward with something we don't think council would be appreciative of seeing.
Well, Keith, you are the engineer.
I'm sorry, Councilman Rodriguez. Councilwoman Gallegos has her hand up, and then you will be right after her. Thank you.
Just had a comment. I wanted to thank Randy and Keith for that presentation. I sit on the Madera County Arts Authority for all of you, and they asked for some input on what was happening with Caltrans. And so last minute change of people in charge, Keith came in and represented us as the city engineer and gave them that information of what kind of a viewpoint what we're seeing tonight. So they're excited to hear that the city's thinking about taking it over and the things that we're doing. Excuse me. So I just wanted to say thank you, Keith, for stepping in during that meeting.
We'll have Councilwoman get a drink of water. Maybe she can come back. Councilman Rodriguez, and then Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Yes, thank you. I remember Don. I was just Keith was we left him there paused, so I wasn't sure if he was looking for direction regarding the 45-degree parking. Now, Keith, as an engineer, I mean, I'd like to get your opinion. Is this something that we can certainly, like you said, we have a bird in the hand. Is this something that we can move forward and make this a positive thing for our downtown?
I think to the best of our ability, we want to grab hold of anything that they're willing to go ahead and fund. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the 45-degree parking or whatever, but it can be a lot of the safety improvements. But you know, we're talking about, just as in a hawk signal, at least 100 grand for that. Bulb outs, if they do them, 25 a piece. So anything that they're willing to do that furthers our goals, then we should. We should take it. We're a little uncertain as to whether we should be looking for that complete street where we go from 4 lanes to 2. If we go that way, we're going to need a traffic study. We're going to want to understand the impacts of downtown, and I have lots of thoughts on how we get there, but it's additional study.
I certainly would appreciate that someone like Caltrans would be willing to fund that, and not necessarily coming from our taxpayers. So if we can certainly have, like you said, a bird in the hand instead of 2 in the bush, I go forward any project. We've been at this for years, and I've heard that this downtown has been wanting to do something, but yet we don't move forward on stuff like this. And I shouldn't. Sure. I know that something like this shouldn't deter us from going forward. If this is something that they're willing to fund, then obviously the city of Madera lacks those funds at this moment. So let's move forward and start making those improvements as little as possible. And hopefully here in the near future, we can certainly.
City Lancaster, where I just showed you that it looked a lot like Madera.
Yeah, that was I thought that was a great improvement. So that certainly enhances our downtown.
And just to let you know, my computer's showing my internet's unstable. So if I lose you, I'll try to come back as fast as possible. But
I'm good.
Can I add something about the 45-degree parking?
Mayor and Council, I just want to say that the item on the agenda is just an update. There's not even language about direction or input from the council. It was supposed to be an update. Just a reminder, and there's some of you, the council member has spoken 3 or 4 rounds already.
Thank you, Ms. Montoya. I want to hear from Randy, and then we'll wrap it up with Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
As far as the 45-degree parking, we had just talked about, instead of parallel parking, angled parking, and it morphed into the back end parking. That is not a concrete decision by them by any means. It is just an option that's being considered.
Thank you, Randy. Mayor Pro Tem.
I will give up the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you for that update. I appreciate it. It's going to be an ongoing discussion, obviously. As was mentioned, I think before all of us were in our current position, the discussion about downtown has been weighing heavily on our community. So I do look forward, like everybody else, to move with that bird in the hand, as you said, Keith. Thank you very much for that. Let's move on to the consent calendar. I'll ask right now if there's any of my colleagues wishing to further discuss or pull any consent item.
I'd like to pull B9.
Councilwoman Gallegos, B9, and Councilman Montes raised his hand.
That was going to be my suggestion as well.
Okay. Anybody else? I don't see any attendees wishing to speak. So why don't we address B9 first, and then we can address the consent calendar. So Councilwoman Gallegos, item B9.
I'm a little uneasy about B9 because we all signed it at the dotted line, said we were good with this. It was a go. And then we have Pacific West coming back and changing plans and asking for things left and right. And so this project is still not moving, and it's asking for some other things, that the precise plan that it just keeps changing. I don't understand why. And now that they're in a time crunch, that if they don't get the permits from us by a certain time, the funding won't go through and this project won't happen. My question is, how come when something's presented and council's approved it, because we all went through all the steps and approved it, why is it coming, or are they coming back, Pacific West coming back and saying, you know, we're going to do this and this and this? Is it because it's a money issue? So those are the questions I have.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And because Councilman Montes also pulled B9, I'll ask for his comments.
I just wanted to go through the exercise of putting Mr. Conti on the spot and going through the going through the item so that we can better understand what it is we're asking, what, you know, and so the community can understand as well. What are we asking for? What are they asking for? And kind of echoing Councilmember Gallegos' concerns.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia, is that along the same lines of what you would be asking?
Yes, sir. That's exactly what I'm looking at. The time frame also, last minute. I have some questions regarding the project. I've been asking questions of the project for over a year now, and I'm not really comfortable not knowing a lot of the things that I want to ask about. But I do realize if there's a time limitation, so I would want to talk about, can we make some adjustments, or can we approve and then come back and make adjustments?
Okay, thank you for that. And we do have with us, it says item B9 speaker.
Hello, this is Tim Shockwell for the Pacific Companies. Can you hear me?
Yes, Tim.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear the comments because we don't characterize this as delayed at all or any problems with respect to financing. In fact, the financing closed a week and a half ago. All of the financing is in place and we're ready to start construction. We actually have grading permits in hand. The problem has been, frankly, with the architect getting what they consider specific responses to the elevations. All of those items, and there are only 5 in this agreement, are extremely minor, and they all involve the outside skin elevation. Nothing has anything to do with the interior of the building, square footage, the number of units, who they'll be rented to, or any of that. So I'd like to sort of review those items. One of them is the color scheme of the outside elevations. Some of the community meetings early on, before we were involved and took this project over as developers, required or suggested a blue-gray color scheme, and we've provided those. I hope staff may have those elevations we've provided, or I should say the architect has provided, but we're perfectly willing to consider any other color. We don't care what color it is. We want what Madera wants, and we want to make the council and citizenry happy. That's what we do, is build affordable housing and special need housing projects. The second issue had to do with the use of more materials on the exterior. The requirement in this agreement is to add 1 more material, and the architects are working on that now. They've just been frustrated because they haven't gotten any specific direction as to what materials, and materials that they've submitted in the past have sort of been vague in terms of responses. Another item has to do with putting trees in the public right-of-way, in other words, in the sidewalks. We're perfectly willing to do that. That was agreed to early on. All we need is access agreements or encroachment agreements, and the city to tell us what they want where. We'll do whatever you want. There are 2 other minor items, and they're extremely minor. It had to do with the window coverings. The city has requested that we put some awnings on the south and the west of the buildings, and that's perfectly fine. There's no problem. As a matter of fact, the architect is working on all of these items. I expect all of these items to be back before Gary and Arnaldo within 2 or 3 days. So, you know, I mean, we're not holding this up. We need to get this thing built. I've got 5 projects going now. And it's always down to the wire because of the bond financing. I'd like to remind the council, perhaps you're not aware of the financing, but there are 6 or 7 different sources of state money involved and private financing involved. And every set of lenders and investors has a set of requirements. And not all of the requirements are compatible with one another. So we spend an awful lot of time trying to make everybody happy, which I think we've done here. That's why the financing closed. But when you go after bond financing, which you have to do on tax credit syndications, on 4% tax credit syndications, they require bond financing. The state has a hard date by which you have to close financing, pull permits, and start construction. And that date is up on August 14th. And we've been talking to the city for many weeks. And Arnaldo, I know you have to agree that we have been trying to get the permits, trying to get in a position to have these permits finished. I'm told that as of today, everything is agreed by all the departments except for these 5 items, 4 of which are required items under the precise plan. And the 5th one is advisory that has to do with the exterior elevations. I mean, the exterior colors. So we don't care whether the windows are shaded or not. We've provided both options to the city. We just need to know specifically what you want. The architects are calling me and emailing daily to find out. So I'd be glad to answer any other questions you have on the project. I think I'm fairly versed on it. And I was certainly unaware that you've got questions or had comments that have gone unaddressed.
Well, Mr. Shakwa, if it's something as simple as the color scheme or just certain materials or these the encroachment permit or right of way, if it was that simple, why is that still not done?
We have been trying to get it done, and we've been relying upon the architect to get these concessions or agreements. They're really not concessions at all. We haven't asked for anything. But if you'll take a look at the agreement that was prepared by Hilda and suggested by the architect, these are extremely minor conditions. There's no money deal here. There's nothing that costs the developer any money. And frankly, there's plenty of money to do a quality project. These 2 buildings will have the highest energy ratings in Madera. You won't have a single building. They've got photovoltaic. They've got, they're really state of the arts, and they're commercial looking, which is not standard for us. Typically, we do residential looking buildings and typically much bigger projects.
It's my understanding, though, that it's been a number of issues, and I think now we're just down to these last minor ones. So it's not like for the past weeks, as you said, being back and forth with the city, that it's just been these very same issues. It's been a number of issues, and now this is kind of what we're down to is these last few. Is that correct?
Yes, this is the last few, but the other issues I have regarded as minor. I haven't been involved directly in that because that's not, my pay grade is to be involved with the specifics of the design and the issue. But the Pacific companies, I think it's a mischaracterization to say that we've drug our feet in any way. We've been pushing this thing like crazy for the last year and a half, trying to get in a position to start construction. But you've got you've got all these various funding sources. The state's been delayed on standard agreements. We have project-based Section 8 on 30 of the 48 units, which is not easy to work through the housing authority. I've done all those documents myself and gotten approvals by the federal government because they really, frankly, don't have the staffing to understand how this stuff goes together as easily. So we've been providing counsel to them on how to get it done because I've been doing these things for many years. So we got that all approved, or the construction and takeout financing has actually closed. So we'd have to go back to everybody where we already have contracts and try and get them to do it. But I'll tell you this, Pacific companies won't proceed with the project if you're not happy, and they're not going to proceed with the project if we don't have agreement on these issues by the time we get to these issues. I really think that if you'll hold the recording of the document and the subordination agreements for a week or 2, all of these minor issues can be resolved. Pick a color on the elevations. Does anybody have on staff the elevations that were provided 2 or 3 weeks ago by the architect with all the various color palettes and schemes?
There's nobody, Mr. Shakwa. No, I can speak for the council when I say that every member of the city council, as well as our team, would love nothing more than to move forward and progress. We've had a number of meetings, and we're very, very excited. We presented this to the community, and we know that there's bumps in the road, if you will. I think the issue is leading up to the timeline where we're still not where we need to be, but yet you want us to approve something. And as an elected official, as a policymaker, it just gets to be very difficult to say at this point, we need you to trust us and say, yes, approve it, even though we still have not come up with these things. And as I mentioned before, if it was just these minor issues for the last 6 or 8 weeks, there would not be a problem. It's just been other issues from the architect, as you say, and it doesn't sound like you're speaking for the architect where the issue lies. That's the uncomfort level. But before I go on, I'm going to ask Councilman Montes for his comments.
And I just wanted to add to that. The reason why council is asking, or why I'm asking, you said you don't care what it is, but actually we do, and our community does, and they're going to hold us responsible at the end of the day if we don't deliver, or you don't deliver on what was promised and what was presented to them months ago. So this is why we're asking these questions, so that we can hold all parties responsible and say, okay, what was the product that we were promised, and make sure we get that product. So that comment was a little concerning, where, I mean, you might not care, but we care. I know every council member here cares about what goes up in the city of Madera.
But I do care, and I've done many projects, and I represent, with my other hat, I've been a housing authority director for over 20 years. I've worked for 3 public housing authorities. I've done developments for cities and counties. I still represent counties and cities in terms of my consulting practices. The Pacific Companies builds a Class A #1 product. Take a look at the projects we've built, including the one in Madera that we built 8 or 9 years ago. They're Class A #1 projects. The elevations on this project are absolutely gorgeous. And frankly, I was surprised that anybody even questioned them, because I thought they met all the requirements, as did the architects. When I say I don't care, I mean I don't care which color the buildings are, because we've given you all kinds of options and color palettes. And if somebody could share the screen, I mean, if somebody could show those elevations, which I'm not prepared to do right now, that were presented to staff just a few weeks ago, it would be fine. We're not holding anything up, Mr. Mayor. We're ready to go. All of these have been through plan check. We actually have the fees. We're ready to pay the fees. We're ready to start the project. These things came up because we couldn't get this, frankly, through planning, because planning didn't believe they were in compliance with the precise plan. And I didn't know why, in reading the precise plan, what specifically the elements were. And the architect has mentioned that they've done other projects in Madera in the past. We inherited the architect because this project was started by a nonprofit that didn't have the net worth or the expertise to file the applications with the state, which was why we were invited in by them.
Right. So that being said, why don't we hear from Mr. Conti from our planning manager?
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to share screens with you in regards to what was the approved set of plans via the precise plan process that was considered, and then ultimately the product that was presented to and through the process of the construction plan sets. Give you kind of feel what has transpired. We have a responsibility to review the plan sets as far as planning goes, to ensure that the plans meet the series of conditions that were laid in the precise plan approval process, and the illustrations that were part of that. They were very clear as to the type of architectural design. They were very clear as to the number of units, so on and so forth, as well as what the elevations were to be represented by, all the way up to the point of colors. There was a color palette and materials list that identified the types of materials that would be presented and provided along the entire elevations that were presented along the streetscapes, and so on and so forth. And so, as the plans did come in, we did notice that the plan sets did not align to what was part of the conditions. And thus, we were in a position that where we could not come to an agreement in saying that they were in substantial compliance. In fact, they were not in substantial compliance with what the conditions outlaid. And I'll be happy to share my screen. And bear with me, every once in a while I do have a hiccup in this remote, but we'll see how it goes.
You also, Gary, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but can you also show the ones that were submitted by Stephanie a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to share.
Thank you.
The original set that, and this one here will represent the Veterans Building. There are two different sets of plans. They're in color schemes and kind of material kind of presentations are very similar in nature. Just the outlay of the structure of the building is different. And then the illustrations I was afforded to most recently will reflect that also the veterans facility. They will pass over a little bit over the multi-housing structure, but you'll get the gist of where we were and where we're going today, and then where we need perhaps to go here in the short term to put us back into a level of compliance with the conditions of the plan. Okay.
Can I call on our city manager, Mr. Rodriguez, for his comments, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So as Gary's loading it up, Gary, please do so. And one thing to add is, I think as council knows and the community knows, every project of this scale has a lot of moving parts, and it's been a fluid project since it started. There are a lot of funding sources. We've had some challenges. We've had to work through some things post-project approval, specifically the undergrounding of overhead utilities and some of the building elevations. We were fortunate that we have received a $1 million grant. And that was after the project was approved. We applied for an additional grant for $1 million to underground some of the overhead utilities. And so as Gary came on board, and as I had been working with the architect, some of the building elevations have changed through the process, which I'm going to allow Gary to speak to right now, because Gary has all of the different plans. And quite frankly, Gary is, he's the one that studied them a lot closer in detail in comparison to myself. I think at the end of the day, I think we all collectively want to get to the finish line. However, what I would not want council or the community to feel is the planning staff has been dragging its feet. Rather, one of the challenges or one of the things that we've been trying to do is to ensure that the community and the council, the final product reflects what was approved and the commitments that we collectively as an organization have made to our community.
Absolutely.
And that has been our concern. So yes, have we stuck to our guns? Absolutely. Have we tried tempering that with some level of reasonableness to be accommodating to the developer? Absolutely. And so those are some of the things that we've been working through. Unfortunately, we're here we are at the 11th hour, and we're still dotting the I's and crossing the T's. However, I can assure council and the community it has not been a lack of or it's not due to a lack of effort by staff. Again, these are complicated projects and there's a lot of moving parts. At the end of the day, we simply want a project that the community, that the council, that the housing authority, the Moores Board, and Pacific West communities, and the architect Paul Halajian can look at and be proud of and say, boy, that's one pretty cool project, and it created or it changed the dynamic and the skyline of downtown Madera. And at the end of the day, that's our goal. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Gary. Thank you.
All right. Does everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. This is the elevations that represent the Veterans Building, and which was identified specifically in the approved plan set of conditions. These were attached as illustrative and specified in the conditions. I can look up exactly what number you care to if you want to be more specific. But as you can tell, these elevations consist of a number of different types of materials for the exterior finish of the building, and a color set of schemes that laid out. You'll also notice that there are varying elevations in the depth of the materials of the building scape as they come forward and back. Types of certain colonnades, and what you see here is kind of a base finish, a medium, and then in some areas where you have a crown finish delineated. For example, you'll have this edge built here and along here on these series of elevations, and then you've got other types of schemes. And so there's a breaking of a massing sense. So that what you didn't end up having is a single product type of materials that would be very overpowering as a mass. The intent of these were to break the mass scene of a large 3-story structure on a prominent corner. We all know that one of the goals of this particular project is to form the catalyst of new opportunities in our downtown area, basically a block off. I'm going to try to pop into the other screen and see if this will open up for where we are or what's being considered at this point. Now, do you notice, is this now available to you folks? This is where we are today. A little bit different scheme, and this will carry out, and this here is the actually the multifamily housing unit, which would be catty corner from the veterans. The color scheme is, in some part similar to what was described in the color palette. The materials have changed in this particular case. And what you see is predominantly what we refer to as hardy board or hardy board cement finish. It's all basically a single type of materials, whereas the prior screen that you saw consisted of a different series and was a requirement to provide a stucco, wood, and metal finish. And so that's not being representative in here. We're kind of a solid finish. Yes, it does provide the pop outs in variations in some of the building form, and so that it's just a straight line across the sidewalk or street edge to provide some little bit of depth and perspective. The window treatments were here to try to give again some changes into that materials. I'll go on to the next slide of this current aspect we have. This is what would happen, or this is an opportunity, and it seems to be there was some consensus about changing the colors more from the custard or browns to a blue, teal, gray type of tones. It does, change the appearance of the buildings. It does make a little bit of a sense of change, and it's the total appearance on the block. Again, this is the family housing unit. These are types of window treatments. Because it's what we refer to as a stick building, there's only so much depth that you can deal with. And this effort here was to try to emulate a little bit more depth or character, or what we refer to as fenestration, window treatments, to try to keep some, what we were trying to drive for is a shadow box feel. And this is yet another view shot of that kind of concept here, where you have window styles, and then this pattern that you see around here is a type to emulate the windows are actually larger than what they do up here, and to provide some character towards that end. But you'll notice we're still consistent with the same material straight on through, which is again the hardy board materials, regardless of whether we are depressed or pop out, as we would refer to in the structure itself. It is still one monotone type finished material.
Mr. Conti, Mayor Medillin here. Can I ask why the change in materials?
You would have to ask the architectural team. That was not. There was no direction by city that I'm aware of. And again, I do admit I'm the new kid on the block here,
right?
And I had to pick up the baton and move forward with this particular project. I don't have records that would indicate when, if there was a direction by any prior staff members to go to this approach as to what was originally directed by the conditions of approval on the Pacific plan.
Mr. Rodriguez, can you speak to that point? Because if there was no direction from city staff or council, can you share why the change in materials? And I'm really concerned about the longevity of these new materials.
Yeah, and thank you, Mayor. I'm not certain why the change was made. To my knowledge, that request was not made by city staff. Going back to what Gary said a few minutes ago, we did have a previous staff person working on this project, but to my knowledge, that was not at the request of the city. Rather, I've actually asked for the exact opposite early on, to add different building materials, because what it does is it breaks up the plane breaks of a building, and then on top of that, it stimulates some type of some form of visual interest in the building. So generally, what you try to do in building designs, especially in a building to break up the massing of a building, is you try to incorporate additional building materials. And I know early on, that was one of my requests. In this particular case, it appears that they've gone to a lap siding, whereas the initial approved site plan or building elevation had, going back to what Gary said, I think it had a total of 3 different building materials. It had the stucco, it had some lap siding, and I think it had some metal as well. And that's what's shown right there. So, so if you take a look at it, it had a wood-like finish. It had some hardy board, and then it also had some stucco. And then it had the metal colonnades that are visible on the bottom elevation on the 5th Street exterior elevation, and on the top right where it says C Street elevation.
And that's the elevation that Mr. Arnaldo Rodriguez is speaking about.
Right,
So-
and to Mr. Shakwa's point, when Mr. Shakwa, you said these small items that are before us, you said that more materials. We did not request, or the city did not request more materials. This was in the original plan. Is that correct?
Well, yes, and if I can address that, the architect's review, the architect provided those additional pictures that Gary showed, and they said they were conceptual at the time of approval, and that they tried to emulate the concept and improved on the concept. They believe they've provided what was in the precise plan. We weren't involved in the project at the time, and I really do think this has to do with their misconception perhaps of what the city wanted. And I've gotten more direction tonight in this council meeting with respect to this than I have all along. I'm not trying to throw planning or anybody from the city under the bus. We want to get this project built. That's the only way we make money and make friends in communities. I think these elevations that you're looking at now, but if they don't meet with your concept of what you want for downtown Madera, then by all means, let's change them. Let's tell the architect specifically what it is that you want. They think they know now. They're working on it as we speak. And adding more materials, another 1 or 2 materials as is required by this agreement, I don't see as a big deal. I really don't. And I don't want you to think the Pacific Companies is trying to somehow save money on this. This is not a save money project. This is a very expensive project. It's got a lot of sources for that reason. We're committed to undergrounding the utilities. We have crossover agreements now. I just got the second one signed by the CRLA office that we have to cross over their building lot just in the last few days. That wasn't easy, in that they hire outside counsel to write an agreement that we have to agree to, and end up having to repave their entire parking lot. But, it's one of those things that developers run into. So I just hope you'll approve the agreement and give us a few days to work out the issue, but not hold up the permits so that we can meet the technical requirements of the state. And
As
the bond
Mr. Rodriguez said, the one thing we certainly have in common is we want to move forward with this project. That's absolutely for sure. And I appreciate your candor and your honesty, Mr. Shakwa, when you say you now understand the council. I think that's all we're asking this evening, is to understand that from our perspective, as we have worked on this for a couple of years now, it went from conceptual to actual. And I think the last time we've actually heard about it was moving forward. We had some very difficult issues with undergrounding, with getting funding. We all fought very, very hard for that funding.
Yes.
So thank you very much for at least your understanding and knowing now that when we come back kind of in the 11th hour, this is nothing like what we approved. There's just been so many changes back and forth. Yes, there's been some personnel changes and things like that, but we can both agree that we want to move forward, but acknowledge at the same time that this is not what we had originally approved. Appreciate you understanding that. Mayor Pro Tem Garcia has a question.
Yes, and I apologize if I change direction a little bit. I am a relatively new city councilman. This project was up and running prior to me being elected in 2018. I've been very excited to see this project moving forward, but I do have a question regarding the contract and the wording, if any, relating to, as you know, our community needs jobs. And we fight tooth and nail to try to bring jobs and have our Maderans be hired. Do you have any language in the agreement between the city and yourselves regarding hiring locally, prevailing wage or apprenticeship programs? Is there anything in there? I have not seen it. It might have been something that came before my time or afterwards, and I have not seen it. And that is my question and concern that I'd like if you could address that.
Well, first of all, this is a prevailing wage rate job. This not only has Davis-Bacon federal wage rates, but the higher state rates, which increases the cost of this job by about 30%. There's all kinds of language related to apprenticeship programs and efforts to hire locally and to allow local subcontractors that are qualified and bondable, because all of our subs have to be bonded under the requirements of the partnership agreements. So there are hundreds and hundreds of pages of agreements, but many of those address your issues. There is no specific requirement that we hire anybody that isn't qualified or isn't bondable. But yes, there are apprenticeship issues in here, and there are requirements with respect to prevailing wage rates. Absolutely. And all of the local contract or subcontractors like concrete and so forth that that have the ability to bond will be solicited, as we've done before in Madera. This also has a Madera engineering firm is involved in it. We were asked specifically when we entered to hire a local engineering firm, which we did. Not a firm that we worked with in the past, but they've turned out to be excellent and frankly cheaper. So we're glad we did. But I'm not part of the construction people. That's Pacific West Builder. So, you know.
Well, if I may, and please do not send me hundreds and hundreds of pages, because I guarantee I will not read it. If I could have pertinent language provided by either yourself or the construction companies regarding the language, I would appreciate that, because that is something that I would be very interested in.
Right. We can provide that, and we can provide you the state documents, because every one of these, from the cap and trade money to the the tax credit money doesn't, but the bond requirements that bring in the prevailing wage rate issues have that specific language that the state requires, and we're audited on that.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Shakwa. Thank you for those comments. I'm gonna, if there's no final comments, I see maybe our city manager may want to.
And the city attorney.
Yes, Ms. Montoy.
Thank you. Just to clarify, this has been a very long and detailed project that's gone on for many years. I've been with you for a year, and during that 1 year period, numerous things have come in. And I don't want to offend Mr. Shakwa, but many items have come in, towards the end of the deadline. And this came into my office last Wednesday evening when Mr. Conti came in and said, I'm very concerned. I have this very important project. It's very important for the city staff, management and the city council to have it move forward, but I have plans that do not meet the requirements of the precise plans. The conditions just are not met. And on the other side, the developer is required to have a building permit in hand by August 14. What can we do? And Gary is new, and he was not about to just issue a building permit because he likes the project. So we discussed how we could approach it, and we came up with this agreement. It's very narrow. All it has to do with is the fact that the plans that have been submitted to the city do not meet the conditions. And so what can we do so that they can get a building permit by August 14th? And so it sets forth that what we can do is that the city will issue a building permit by August 14th. However, the developer must agree to thereafter, not far after, but start submitting plans and details and working with the city staff to ensure that there is compliance, that there is consistency with the precise plans and their conditions. And so that's all that the agreement is intended to do. Now, there is language to protect the city, because we would not want this project to be sold tomorrow, and then the new buyer says, I have a building permit. Gary issued a building permit to me already, so that's what I'm going to go with, city. I don't care. So that is why we have the condition that this agreement be recorded and subordination. And we understand we're not going to go. Mr. Conti's not going to go record it at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning or the day after it's signed. there will be some latitude and a reasonable period of time to work with the developer. But I just want to emphasize that Mr. Conti sent me, first of all, he prepared a draft staff report that my office then reviewed and refined a little bit, but he was just on it. And then at 10:23 p.m. on Sunday night, he sent me a draft agreement and he said, this is what I was able to come up with, Hilda. What do you think? And then he had the outline there, and then I worked from there and added language that again would meet the requirements of the developer, but also protect the city's interests.
And I think that if I can just cut in here for a second, Hilda, I agree with everything you said. And Gary did get into this project late. We've done a lot of work on this before Gary got involved. You have two ultimate hammers, and the first one is that you can stop work at any time if we're not proceeding to provide the documents and the redesigns that you're requesting that are mentioned in these 5 items that I went through at the start of the item. The second one is that you don't have to issue certificates of completion. That's the ultimate hammer, because then everybody goes bankrupt. So, I mean, you've put both of those items in this short agreement. All we're asking, or all I'm suggesting, is it may be impossible to get subordination agreements, as you've outlined, because there are so many players involved. Trying to get those would be almost impossible. If you hold off on the recordation for 2 or 3 weeks, I think this can be resolved in the next few days. I can see now what I need to do is go back to the Pacific companies with respect to some of the architectural work here. I know they're working on it. They're proud of their design as they've submitted it, as they've resubmitted it, because there have been several attempts at it. But I think I have a pretty clear indication of what you want. And I don't see this as a big cost issue at all. We've got plenty of money to do the deal. We insisted on that early on, so we didn't have to skimp, because we knew that you were very much into the project, and we are too.
Again, Mr. Chakwa, thank you very much for your understanding. And I think the whole purpose for a few council members pulling this item was to get us to that point. Me personally, in my closing thoughts, I think we've made it very clear that we just want the best quality project that Madera deserves. On a personal note, I'm certainly not in favor, and I'm going to ask Mr. Conti not to approve anything with lap siding. I think lap siding is a kind of material that looks good today, and with this San Joaquin Valley sun, and years from now, it's going to look horrible. So again, emphasize those original materials. I now want to turn it over to Councilwoman Gallegos. She's the one who originally pulled this item, so I'll ask her for her thoughts and comments.
At this time, I would like to go ahead and approve B9. But knowing all that Hilda stated, that has, she put in there, thank you for the hard work, Hilda, and Gary working late, getting her that on Sunday at 10:23. We appreciate it. And so with that, just to remind you that we would like in the final version, pretty close to the original materials that we first approved months ago for this project. And there's my motion.
Councilwoman, do you want to just do B9 as an individual item or the entire consent calendar?
I'd like to do Hilda B9 by itself. Is that what we should do?
The entire calendar is open at this point right now.
You're on mute, Hilda.
You can go ahead and approve the entire consent calendar.
Okay. Then with that, I motion to approve the entire consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Been moved by Councilwoman Gallegos and seconded by Councilman Rodriguez to approve the consent calendar as presented, of course, including the discussion regarding item B9. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. I too want to thank you, Mr. Conti, for all the information and bringing us up to date in a short period of time. And you too, Mr. Chakwa, thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for your consideration. And I'll go back and tell them what you said. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chakwa, for listening.
Thank you.
I finally get one inside the duo Robinson and Holly, so good.
Yes, you have to be quick. You have to be quick. With that, as I had requested, and council was so gracious to move item E1 up to this portion. So before we go into public hearings, Let's first thank Mr. Kalpakoff and the team at Mid-Valley. This is item E1, which has moved up the Mid-Valley disposal first and second quarter updates by Ms. Kwok. Annette, good to see you again.
Nice to see you. Nice to see everybody. Welcome. Welcome. I'm not even there. Council members, Mr. Mayor. I wish we were back to normal, but what's going to be normal? I do have a slideshow. Is Alicia going to put it up?
I don't believe I was provided with the PowerPoint.
I did.
Let me check 1 minute.
The day you gave me the date, I was so excited.
Oh, that was a long time ago. I didn't realize I had a PowerPoint there.
Well, then I can move forward without the PowerPoint, and when she finds it, she can put it up and we can catch up.
Sounds good.
Okay, so this is my first and second quarter, and this consists of January, February, and March, April, May, and June. So within this quarter, my overview for this PowerPoint was my Cal Recycle meeting. That it's actually a phone call first, and then they come in and they meet with us to see how the city is doing. I'm going to run down my site visits, my contamination tags, my load checks, and the new state bill at 1383. And I do have the cleanup tonnages for this last cleanup. Oh, I wish you could see this. We worked, Mid-Valley Disposal worked with city staff, and we sent out letters to each of the customers, commercial accounts that were not in compliance with the state of California's AB 341 with recycling, organics. So just to give you a heads up, there we go. Yay. So look how pretty. Okay, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so just to let you know where we stand, because they're always a year behind. As you can see, our AB 341, 2019, we're at 91% in compliance. Multifamily, we are 90% in compliance. And what that means is I have, like say the commercial businesses, there's 370 altogether, with only 18 not compliant with getting recycling. But good news is we're at 91%. Multifamily, we're at 90%. Mandatory organics, it's a little tough, a little harder to sell, but we're doing a really good job. We're at 80%. Multifamilies, we're at 92%. And this was a lot of help from the city staff. Together jointly, we sent out letters to people that weren't at complying. And when they have the little City of Madera logo, they opened that letter, and this was great teamwork. Again, I want to thank city staff for a great job in helping get us on the right track. Matter of fact, our representative wanted to know and wanted copies of the letters that we sent. So I'm so happy. Thank you. Okay, site visits. Site visits are still a priority, even though with the COVID, we're distancing ourselves, we're checking the bins, we're not going into meeting the customers at this time, but altogether I've done 304 commercial site visits, 171 organic site visits, and 75 multifamily site visits. So we're still out there hitting the pavement, doing our best to make sure everybody's doing things safely. Go ahead. Okay. CMAP.
This is our contamination program. The first and second quarter, commercial accounts, I only had 47. And these are what is called contamination. As you can see, the recycle bin has a lot of trash. And so what we do is I give them, the customer, the option. They can remove the trash and go on as a normal pickup, or we can pick it up as trash. They're charged a little bit more, but not too much. As you can see, this little cart right here is a little overfilled. If they were to cut it down a little bit, it would have fit perfectly. And when I see stuff like this, overfilled trash, I go and, I try to call them because, we're not getting together, and let them know that they need to increase their trash service. Okay. And as, we're distancing ourselves, we're doing load checks. And actually, this is pretty amazing. This is a Wednesday area. I go and check to see how the recycle area is doing for residential. And as you can see, it's actually pretty good. We're at 87%. I'd like to get to 99, but that overachiever thing kind of kicks in. So what we do is just after we see the area, we'll go and mail them out flyers. We'll leave them at their door. So this is a pretty good program to see how good our neighbors are all over town are doing. And that's for recycling. And this is green waste. So green waste, as you can see on this Wednesday area, is 92%. And as you can see, everything goes over to our compost facility in Kerman. You can see they're doing a great job. Great job. Okay, so coming up is SB 1383, organics waste reduction. Another little topic, implementation schedule in 2022 is supposed to take an effect. We're trying to hit the pavement to see which customers, businesses, multifamilies will fall into this category. And it's to stop the emissions. Next slide, you can see a better idea. Oh, sorry, should have switched, but this is good. This is our when we had our cleanup, when I did the report the last time, I did not have the tonnages for the cleanup. So just to compare, in 2019, look at the mattresses. We had 1,232 mattresses that we picked up. And this year we had 2,435. I don't know where they came from, but we were able to pick them up. And as you can see, the picture on the left, we have, temp employees, we have Mid-Valley employees working really hard. And that stretches for a long way. So, okay. Any questions? Do I have anybody that?
Let me get my screen back here, Annette, and see if there's any questions from council. I don't believe I see any hands up, but I do have to thank you because pre-COVID, you and your team, Annette, just blanket Madera from the school district to the city. You're at the fair, you're at National Night Out, you're at Neighborhood Watch, you field a lot of calls and you represent this community very, very well. And COVID did not stop you or the team. You're still out there, you're still in contact, you're doing everything possible that you can do. And we really, really appreciate that because with the cards and the different colored cards, myself included, education is key. I just learned not long ago that as long as it's not raw food, it goes in the green garbage can.
Yes.
And so I have been doing that. I just need to make sure that my grass is there first and then put the old carrots and asparagus on top, not.
Exactly.
Thank you for that. Mayor Pro Tem Garcia has a question.
No, actually, I just wanted to acknowledge Mid-Valley for their great partnership with the city of Madera. Annette, I want to thank you, and Casey. Casey, I know you're back there somewhere, even though we can't see you. Thank you very much for the Sharpies container. It's a really good, large, a beautiful container in front of our Lake Street firehouse. And I want to thank Chief Watson also working with Arnoldo to get that done. It's part of what's needed in our community, having a high levels of folks who use syringes, either for diabetes or any other question, and protecting the, making sure that our workers at Mid-Valley are safe by disposing those syringes in a safe container and deposit it in the kiosk is a really good thing so that we protect all of our community. And so I just want to say thank you very much for doing that. And I really look forward to the newest one that you have promised to deliver to Madera. I'm excited about the location. We can figure out the location so we can get that done. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. And like I explained to Mr. Garcia, that we did have it serviced yesterday, and it was 4 quarters of the way full. It was clean. The driver that services it came by our office and told us they were really happy. It's a good location, so good to go.
Great, Annette. Thank you very, very much. And Mr. Kalpikoff, thank you and your team at Mid-Valley, and Casey as well. We really appreciate you and the partnership we have with the City of Madera. And thank you for your patience.
No problem, always. Bye, everyone. I miss you.
Okay, if there's nothing further on that item, we will move into item C1, our one and only item under public hearings, and this is a weed abatement within the city.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. Tonight, we're going to present a public hearing regarding the weed abatement program within the city, and this presentation will be conducted by Lieutenant Josiah Arnold. So with that, Lieutenant Arnold.
Good evening, Council. So, as the Chief said, we're here tonight to hold a public hearing allowing people to object to the proposed abatement of weed nuisances and to ask you, the Council, to adopt a resolution ordering that abatement to occur. As you know, uncontrolled overgrowth, especially this time of year, poses a fire hazard. In fact, one of the properties that was initially out of compliance had a fire in their property. So we have an annual effort to curb that problem. Of the 362 initially inspected properties, 23 were still out of compliance when those notices of violation went out, which was on March 26th. The deadline was May 10th, but we pushed that back because of COVID, and we knew that there could be some complications or extra hardships for people, but we balanced that against, of course, the public safety need to reduce fire risk. And so we reduced that number down to 7 parcels, which are still out of compliance. And so, of course, at the end of this public hearing tonight, we request that the Council adopt a resolution ordering the abatement of weed nuisances to occur.
Any questions of Mr. Arnold regarding this item? This is a notice public hearing. I will ask our city clerk if we have received any comment regarding this particular item. As a no, thank you very much. And I see no attendees with us this evening. So seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for action on this item.
To approve item C1, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Do I have a second? Usually it's a 5-way tie for second, and now nobody wants to say anything. So with that, it's been properly moved by Councilman Montes and seconded by Councilman Rodriguez to approve item C1, the weed abatement. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Lieutenant. Appreciate it. Moving on to item D, the D sections, petitions, bids, resolutions, ordinances, and agreements. Item D1, this is amendment to the Madera Municipal Code relating to the deposits for utility services. Mr. Sanchez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Before you is let me share my screen with you. A quick presentation. Should be short. So before you is a proposed ordinance update so that whenever the utility billing customers pay the deposit at the beginning of an account, the proposal is that we automatically apply that deposit within a year of service. So I'd like to provide you some information, quick background on the current wording. So the current wording, it says that upon request, so until the customer request, we cannot apply the deposit into their account. It has to be requested by the customer. So we're proposing the wording to be changed, eliminate that, and apply this deposit shall be automatically applied to the customer's account after 1 year period. So this is a change. So instead of waiting for customers, it would be, like I said, automatically updated, and it has many benefits for the customers and for the city as well. For the customers, most customers forget that they have the extra money once they do the initial deposit. It's useful during this time, during COVID, when there's a shortage of cash, sometimes on high unemployment. Some of the customers move out of the city and do not provide a forwarding address as well, so that's another issue. And so they miss on those monies. So those are the benefits for the customers. The benefit for the city is eliminates the cost related to processing refunds. It reduces administrative efforts related to the refunds. We also anticipate savings in interest expense paid to customers on deposits. And it also helps us on the cleanup effort for the during the utility billing conversions from the old May system into the Muni system. So it's just a win-win situation for both the customers and the cities by updating that wording. So with that, the recommendation is the council approves the ordinance amending that section so that we have automatic deposits after 1 year of the initial deposit. So with that, if any questions or discussions, I'm open.
We're correct, Mr. Sanchez. Short and sweet. Thank you very much for that. Any questions of Roger on this particular item? Seeing none, hearing none with attendees, I'll ask our city clerk if we've received any correspondence or request via email.
None received, Mayor.
Thank you very much. If there is no further comment, I'll bring it back to council for action.
Mr. Mayor, I waive further reading and approve the proposal.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Robinson and seconded by Councilman Montes to approve item D1 as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanchez. Appreciate it. Moving into item D2, D3 will be similar, but we're going to take them separately. Item D2, this is a project cooperation agreement between the City of Madera and the Madera Irrigation District, and this particular one is for the airport basin. Mr. Hellman.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. This is in fact item D2, and it is for the Madera cooperation agreement between the City of Madera and the Madera Irrigation District relative to the airport basin. A little history of the agreements here. The first agreement relative to this item was approved on June 21st, 2000 between the city and MID when they entered into a coordination agreement. Little less than 3 years later, a supplemental agreement was approved. Much of what we've been talking about tonight is more relative to the supplemental agreement than the original coordination agreement. So I just want to go ahead and clarify that. Then on August 5th tonight, council will consider a new coordination agreement. Purpose of the original agreements was to provide a more efficient and effective way of completing future projects, enhance the use of local surface and groundwater supplies and water system master plan of the day, recommend dialogue between the city and MID with a goal towards developing a comprehensive groundwater management plan. It's kind of coincidental. They used the term groundwater management plan at the time, and on January 31st, the city and several other groundwater sustainability agencies submitted groundwater management plans to the state. This is the basin area. It is the city use area is part of a much larger area. This entire basin area is owned by the Bureau of Reclamation, and it's administered by the Madera Irrigation District. The agreement here is between the city and the Madera Irrigation District, and it's tied to a license agreement as well. Why a new agreement? Wanted to go ahead and clarify some items, provide clarity on some items where it was lacking. Examples, the disposition of dirt. That's been a topic of discussion over the last few years. The city has sold the dirt that's come out of the basin, and it's ranged from very small amounts to large amounts, and dirt has a value, and it's going to be clarified in this particular agreement relative to how that's handled. For purposes of the dirt, any dirt that comes out that is related to increasing capacity for individual projects, say, as an example, the large building across the street, trying to think of the name. Anyway, the large building across the street, they took a significant amount of dirt out for the purposes of offsetting their impacts on the basin. Under the new agreement, that dirt that they used for fill on their site as well would be stockpiled. Any dirt that the city uses for projects that could come out for the purposes of those projects. The termination agreement, under the existing agreement, which is actually the supplemental agreement that references to that's 25 years. The new agreement is also 25 years. Adding additional clarity to what the staff report didn't mention from the agreement. The current, the new agreement that you're reviewing tonight, that would be renewed in about 8 years. It would correspond with the expiration of a license with the United States Bureau of Reclamation, or the USBR. Once that expires and with renewal, the agreement would be valid until the year 2053. Early termination agreement, that could occur in 2 years upon a notice on either side. That's per the existing and the new agreements. The original agreement allowed up to 5 years to fully terminate if the city had constructed any improvements in the basin. This provision has likely expired, and reviewed that with the city attorney. And the reason it has expired is that says 5 years after improvements, and the last improvements, major improvements that were done related to the basin was probably 15 years ago or so. So we see that as being expired, and the termination would occur in 2 years. It also indicated that it might be delayed based upon and assuming good faith efforts on the part of the city. MID has indicated that language is too vague and open-ended, and it was not included in this particular agreement. Immediate termination, it's pretty much the same. If there's any basis for non-compliance with the agreement or violation of through a violation of applicable law or regulation, the agreement could be terminated immediately. The staff report did refer to lack of faithful performance as a potential criteria. That is not true. It is strictly, I should have phrased that differently, or actually not had that in there. It is based solely on non-compliance with the agreement or a violation of applicable law or regulation. What happens if the agreement is terminated? The city would have 2 years to relocate facilities. That would require the city to identify a replacement basin. As with anything, costs increase. The replacement basin would, over time, be more expensive if we chose to search one out later upon termination. and available parcels do develop over time. At present, there might be options for basins. Over time, if those options were developed and buildings went on them, they would not be available. And the ability to fund a new basin and improvements decreases and or shifts over time. Early on in a scenario of replacing a basin, development impact fees can pay for that. But if development impact fees are not accruing for that particular improvement, then we would need other sources of revenue to replace that basin. That might be through general fund or grants if they are obtainable. And generally speaking, to replace a basin, it simply gets more expensive or more difficult over time. The likelihood of termination, one good thing here, MID and city both we both value our relationship. I believe that. It is MID staff's perspective that there's no interest in terminating that agreement. Staff fully expects that both parties will work collaboratively and effectively towards the long-term benefit of both with regard to the existing basin. Are there guarantees? No, there are no guarantees. What are the alternatives? The alternatives are to not approve of the agreement. We anticipate that a notice of termination might come if a new agreement is not approved. Therefore, we would have 2 years to vacate the basin, not the 5 quoted in the staff report. The other option would be to direct staff to pursue additional negotiations. Also would like to note that MID does have representatives here, and I'm not sure if they want to go ahead and make a presentation. They are very certainly here to answer questions, but if MID staff would like to provide any comments, they are available.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is Thomas Gracie, General Manager of the Madera Irrigation District. I also have Dina Nolan, the Assistant General Manager, here with me. I just want to echo some of those last comments that Keith made on his presentation there regarding the relationship, the working relationship between MID and the city. It has been something we've worked on over the years. This agreement predates most of the staff's time, something that we all inherited, but it's been on our list for a long time to work through and clear up some of the language and bring it up to date. So we're excited to have it on the agenda for your approval tonight, along with the next agenda item. And it shows that some progress is being made recently to start moving forward on some of these to-do items, including some hopefully projects that we'll get to work together on and continue to grow that relationship between the city and MID. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greasy. We really appreciate it. And also, Ms. Nolan, thank you for being with us. And I echo those comments. Councilwoman Gallegos has a question. And if we can get our screen back, please.
For sure.
Thank you.
I have a few questions, Mr. Mayor. My first one is, Keith, I'm not clear about the supplement report from this, because on the report that we received, correct me if I'm wrong, that this agreement will terminate in 8 years in 2028. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so my question here is,
well, we'll not terminate, it'll be up for renewal.
up for renewal. So my question is, why are we entertaining this now if it's 8 years from now that this is going to be up for renewal? Why are we, I don't understand why we have so much to do right now. I don't understand why we're doing this now. It doesn't need to be done right now. That's the first question I have. The second question I have is, the Bureau of Reclamation owns the land that we are using with MID. Where is their fingerprint on this report or on this agreement that we're having, terms of agreement? That's my second question. I don't know, you want to answer the two before I keep going?
Try to go ahead and take them one at a time.
Okay.
Potentially, MID might want to go ahead and discuss some of that. As I indicated, there are parts of the agreement that we want to clear up, or MID would like to clear up. For instance, the dirt work. We've had, I'll call it a difference of opinion with regard to the disposition of dirt. That was one of the primary reasons for going ahead and doing that, settling up on that. As I indicated.
And I understand the dirt part, but again, where are the fingerprints for the Bureau of Replication that owns the land. Where is that in the agreement with anything that has to do with the dirt?
The MID might want to go ahead and answer that. I believe the license agreement is directly with MID.
Okay.
The license agreement is between the city and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. And you're correct, the Bureau owns the land, similar to a majority of the MID facilities that we operate and maintain. So the license is between the city and the USBR.
Okay.
And that current license expires in 2028, which is why the term of the current agreement now aligns with that license agreement. That it ends in 2028 with an additional potential 25-year renewal, assuming that the city can get another license with the Bureau for an extended period of time beyond 2028.
Who's talking now? It's Tom's screen, so I don't know who's.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I have Dina Nolan, the Assistant General Manager.
Oh, she has a different screen. And she's not, hers is muted, so I didn't know who was talking. She has a different screen than you, Mr. Gracie.
Yes, she's joining me in the room so that we could.
Okay. So if you could answer that first question about why are we going to this now if it's 8 years from now? The concern I have is the council members that are here might not be here in 28, and I know I won't be here in 2045. So we're making decisions for council members that in the future that are going to be here. And we as council members have taken up a lot of interest on decisions that were made before us. And so I as a council member are really careful to make decisions that somebody else is going to have to follow through on, because I won't be here in 45. So the question is why are we bringing this up right now? To me, it doesn't need to be done if it's 8 years from
now. So there's two different, there's the license agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation.
Right.
That expires in 2028.
Right, 8 years from now.
Yeah, there are separate agreements between MID and the city of Madera related to this.
Okay.
Those agreements have different termination provisions in them, as Keith just went through. As Keith described, we've had many discussions with city staff over the years related to this agreement, and we just feel it's time to go ahead and clean up those discrepancies so that we're all on the same page. This agreement then will have a consistent timeline with the license agreement, as opposed to different timelines from the previous versions.
Okay, that just still doesn't answer why we're doing it 8 years. I would see in 2007, if you approach this council with this, I could understand us trying to clean up language and making this work. To me, I feel really that you're putting us over a barrel, having us make a decision for a council that's not going to there's going to be some shifting between now and 2028. To me, I'm not real happy. I thought we're working a really good relationship with MID. We did the Sigma together. We were moving. And when I saw this report, I'm thinking, what is going on? And so I don't know how my counterpartners feel, but maybe we need to take a step back and maybe talk to some of our counterparts on the MID board and find out why this is happening. I don't understand. We have so much going on, Mr. Gracie and Ms. Nolan, that this to me, I don't understand why it's being presented today. It's just so unclear to me.
Well, on that note, I mean, if you'd like to discuss it with our board members, it is on our agenda for tomorrow. So you're welcome to come to our MID board meeting and participate through the phone system.
I wish I could. I'm a school teacher and we just went back. So I'm thinking it's very difficult for me to get there. And I'm Zooming just like you probably will be for your meeting. So in the late notice, it's going to be hard for me to shift that. So I'm going to give my colleagues an opportunity to say anything they'd like to say.
Thank you.
I still don't think my questions are being answered, but okay, we'll let somebody else have the floor.
Thank you, Councilwoman. There's three council members. First would be Councilman Steve Montes, followed by Councilman Rodriguez, and then Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to agree with Councilmember Gallegos. So Keith, a couple questions for you. So the main, or I guess would be for everybody in MID as well. So the main issue is dirt. I mean, so is that a significant amount of earth that's being moved, a significant amount of money? What is the main issue behind that? Yeah, I mean, Can somebody explain that to me?
Well, I'll start, and Tommy or Dina may jump in. Dirt, of course, has value. As I indicated earlier, and one of the things that the city had interpreted from the original agreement was that we had the ability to go ahead and that we had, I'll call it, the discretion to use the dirt for whatever purposes. The city wasn't using the dirt per se. A lot of what we do with that is we're working towards creating a larger basin, a basin that can accommodate the 100-year storm. As development occurs, the need for a larger basin continuously increases. Therefore, the basin increases. So one of the things we do is we do.
Oh, we lost him.
He did warn us.
Yeah.
Tommy and Dina, we lost Keith. Would you mind elaborating or continuing where Keith left off? We lost him somehow.
So specifically to the soil, as mentioned earlier, that property is owned by the federal government through the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. To take soil and sell it that's the Bureau, essentially Bureau land, that's something we had a concern with. If we have a partnership and we're utilizing it through the city, that's one thing, but to sell it for a monetary benefit, it was concerning to us. So we wanted to clear that up and make sure that we address that. It's one of our concerns.
Okay, so I guess my question would be, so we have a ponding basin, so it's essentially a hole, and we want to put water into it. So if we make it bigger, I mean, we can't just we'd have to store the dirt somewhere.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Just following protocols. I jumped onto Randy's machine. My computer may be coming on. I don't know. We'll wait and see. Okay, so continuing with the dirt work discussion, we removed dirt for a couple of different reasons. All of those relate to being able to create a basin that's large enough for the for floods that may hit the basin. Dirt is removed for every development. When they build, we ask them to remove an equivalent amount of dirt for what their storm runoff might be going to that basin. The other option that takes dirt out is when somebody wishes to purchase dirt, we sell it for, that's a fairly cheap rate. I want to go ahead and say it's less than $1 a yard or something like that. That also serves to get a larger basin. We use that same policy across all of our basins in town. The way we do this, it allows us to go ahead and get the basin dug out, and the city doesn't actually have to pay for that. If we had to pay for the dirt to be removed, that's an additional impact on the development impact fee program. So it works out that way. In any case, there is a difference of opinion with regard to that, to the original agreement with regard to that, and the old agreements. They're 17 years old. They do not match current standards for what we've been doing in agreements lately. They're dramatically different. So that would be two reasons. And Tommy and Dina may have other things that they may want to volunteer.
So we have the ability, if we have the necessity to make that ponding basin bigger to hold more capacity, we have the ability to do that. But it sounds like the issue is that we're making $1 a yard. If for whatever reason a developer wants to use that dirt.
Yeah, we sell it. It's relatively cheap. Every so often we find ourselves in a position where we need additional dirt. There was a basin on the west side of town, southwest, that we actually needed water out because we identified a problem 10 years ago or so. We took out thousands of yards and used that on the Ellis overcrossing, and that we think that resolved one of the flooding issues. It's just one of the things that we do. It's not our attempt to make money on that. It's just our attempt to empty to go ahead and create capacity. Now, if under the new agreement, we will more than likely have to require developers to remove the dirt and stockpile it, and then they will find dirt someplace else. There may be some
there may be some cost associated with that to the developers and ultimately to the impact fee program.
So they would remove the dirt and just retain it somewhere?
Under the agreement, any dirt that's removed for the purposes of capacity would be stockpiled. Now, I should have prepared myself for that question. One of the things that we do is our master plan tells us where our basins stand. Are they excavated fully? Do they need dirt removed, or are they deficient? If they're deficient, one way or the other, the dirt has to come out with new development, because each incremental increase in amount of water going into the basin needs to be accommodated, because we don't want the 100-year storm topping it and potentially flooding something we don't want to be flooded. And I don't know where this basin particularly stands at the moment.
Okay, and then so my second question would be for you, Keith, or maybe Arnoldo. What is our contingency? So it sounds like, I mean, potentially, and from the conversation, doesn't look like anybody wants this, but that agreement can be terminated in 2 years by MID, even though the land isn't owned by them. What is our contingency for that? I mean, I know you kind of touched on it, but I would feel better knowing that maybe we have a better contingency than, well, there's properties.
At the moment, I would say we have no contingency. If we move into the new impact fee program, which we are, I should not put if in there. When we move into the new impact fee program, a replacement basin is not planned within the impact fee program. So if we did receive a notice to vacate in 2 years, might not be a big deal. 5 years, hard to say. It incrementally, the cost incrementally increase. And if the impact fee program is not collecting sufficient funds, it can start to become an existing deficiency. Under existing deficiency status, or under that particular scenario, impact fees can't be used to pay for certain improvements. We may already be in some degree in that scenario with what we've already got in the ground. With the storm drainage improvements, the conveyance system that sits there right now, if we needed to relocate, we might be able to identify land nearby, dig a new basin and redirect the piping. However, we would be buying a new basin.
So essentially saying that to do that anytime in the near future, we'd have to do that now, or kind of anticipate that we're probably going to have to and start changing the impact fees now.
Logically, we would start accumulating impact fees with I guess you would call it an expectation that would be occurring.
And then, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Medellin. So the city has a license now with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, and within that license exists a conjunctive use cooperation agreement between MID and the city. Is that correct, Keith?
I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm
yeah, well,
I've seen the license agreement.
That's what it states on your the recitals here. But anyhow, I think the issue with dirt here that I also had a concern is it's with respect with what is MID going to do with that dirt, because it does spell out on the new agreement. The language is pretty vague, because all it states is that, you know, for future use of the district, but not quite really spelling out what they're going to use the dirt for. Now, if there's an issue that the city is selling the dirt with that are non-city projects, then what is MID's proposal with dirt 25, 45 years from now? So, I mean, I too would be somewhat concerned as to, you know, boards change. You know, what happens in 10 years with the new district board also might be something different. And I don't know what their intentions would be with that dirt. So if we relinquish that, what kind of loss do we have? Obviously, we all want to work together in trying to, one, create a basin large enough to be able to recharge and be able to supply water for future development. But I don't know that the language on their agreement is also very specific as what they're going to do with the dirt. I'm not sure if either one of you can answer that. That'd be Keith and or Tommy.
I would not be able to answer that. They own the dirt under this scenario.
So just a general comment to try to answer that. Specifically, what MID will be doing with the soil that's removed, that's stockpiled, is unknown. We have stockpiled soil throughout our distribution system to manage facility breaks, canal breaks, flooding events, etc. So I can't tell you what it will be used for, but I have to remind you that our facilities have been paid off by MID growers for over the years, for 100 years, or since the early days. So we've invested in these facilities to pay them off, which we have. And our concern is that soil being sold by the city or provided at no cost to a developer for their project is a concern. Now, we've agreed that the city can utilize some soil for their own projects, and we've included that in the agreement for the benefit of the city and our partnership.
So we couldn't hold you for the same deal, correct? Meaning that we couldn't, it wouldn't be a vice versa where we too would say that that soil could not be used, but other than for MID purposes and or projects.
Just to take a step back, just a reminder, the district has allowed the city to utilize this property and basin at no cost for, I don't know, I think how many years the agreement's been in effect. But so that's a big benefit to the city to not have to acquire land and utilize this basin as part of the district's facilities.
No, I completely understand, Tommy. I think my question was, and you know, I think in your concern is that we don't just give out the soil to developers and what have you. Would that be then the same on the opposite end? That's all I'm asking. Well, other than capital projects that pertain to the MID.
I mean, our fundamental concern is to clarify the document so that we're all on the same page and it's been updated. And that was our fundamental concern for the need to update this document.
Thank you, Tommy.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia and then Councilwoman Gallegos.
Rather than start throwing dirt around, this is fascinating stuff that I think I'm a little bit more confused now than I was at the beginning of this conversation. I'm pretty certain that there are others that would echo my sentiments. I really don't like to be backed up against the wall either. And it seems to me unnecessary to go so far out from an existing contract to shortening that and be some type of obligation. As I was looking at the talking points, they don't seem insurmountable, or that they can't be, in my opinion, and this is a layperson, that they can't be done within the existing contract. And so, having said that, I think that we need more clarification as to what this would mean and why we would be shortening the time that we were going to have to renew the contract. And so my opinion is that we should table this and direct staff to get us more answers and enter into more negotiations so we could have a clear idea of what we're entering into. And barring that, I don't see it myself personally looking to move forward with this new contract.
So just to clarify and point, it's actually the option of renewal of additional 25 years extends the agreement further. And it lines up with the license with the Bureau of Reclamation's expiration for that.
That is correct, Council. The proposed agreement would not shorten the time period. Under either the current supplemental agreement or the proposed agreement, you have the 8-year period so that you can get the new license from the feds. And then under the new agreement, there's clarification of certain terms and conditions and the issue of the dirt. Under the both agreements, if either party can send a notice of termination at any time, and it's a 2-year notice, either under the current agreement or under the proposed agreement.
I think I might have misstated my position in that it wasn't a shortened agreement. It's that we're renewing the agreement way before 2028. That's my point.
Well, you're not renewing it. Either way, the renewal with the federal government will be in the same date under either the current agreement or the proposed agreement. So you're not shortening that time period. That does not change. All you're doing is entering into a new agreement. If you wish to do so, that's your prerogative. You would be entering into a new agreement with a number of terms and conditions that have been clarified in this issue with the dirt. And I understand they want to bring in all their agreements into conformity so that they're all consistent, and that's part of the rationale.
Yeah, I would agree with the city attorney. This is just putting us in sync with the license agreement, and we would have been coming up on this in 2028 anyway. This just gets us to more standardized language and a better understanding with regard to the earthwork or the dirt.
So, Mr. Mayor, I made a motion. I'd like to know if there's anybody in agreement.
We have another. You can certainly make your motion, Mr. Councilman, but we do have some more questions on the floor. Councilwoman Gallegos.
I'll let Mayor, Councilman Montes go ahead before me.
Oh no, I was gonna comment on his motion. So if you have a comment, my apologies. So you can go ahead and make your comment.
Okay, so my comment was for Mr. Gracie. So you've brought that goes back to my first question about why we're seeing this now, and we're seeing this now is it's because of the dirt issue, correct?
No, the issue is we wanted to clarify the document as a whole.
Okay, as a whole. So what I'm looking at our report, it's saying that Councilman Garcia is saying that we want the agreement to go until it will be terminated in 2028. So if we clean up the language, could this agreement just be cleaned up and continue to 2028, and then you bring it back to council in 2027? Is that possible instead of looking at a new agreement to terminate in 2045?
Could you maybe rephrase the question? It sounds like.
Gracie.
Okay.
That's for Mr. Gracie. I'm just asking if, or maybe Hilda, if because they wanted to clean up the language. Tell me if I'm wrong. If they clean up the language, this current agreement that if council was to approve it, it would go only until 2028, not to the new agreement of 2045. You're on mute, Hilda.
Both the current and the proposed agreement go until 2028 because of the license with the federal government.
Correct.
And this agreement would go beyond that, would have the ability for the city to go beyond that.
Go beyond like to 2045?
Correct.
Okay, that's something I'm not comfortable with. I think the language MID wants to put in is great. But
and again, either party may terminate.
Okay. I think MID's language, I get they want to change the language because of the dirt issue. I'm good with that. I just am not good going past 2028. That's where
Well, the 2028, you would still have the ability to either renew or not renew.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily go past 2028.
Right. They would come back in 27.
Hilda, did you freeze or did I freeze? I'm afraid I froze. Okay.
Oh no, she's on mute.
Keith, did you have a question for Hilda?
I did.
You can ask the question, Keith, because she can hear you.
Okay, Hilda, the agreement doesn't terminate on 2028. There's the option to renew on 2028.
Correct.
So, and then it goes for 25 years after that, based upon the assumption that we would get a license agreement with the USBR for 25 years at that point in time. There was that you agree with that?
Yes, I think it's really a policy consideration as to whether council wants to, the staff wants to recommend an agreement that assures that the city will at least would have the benefit of a longer agreement with the option to terminate it, just like MID would have the option to terminate it, or once a shorter time period. That's going to be a policy call for you.
Yeah, and the longer term agreement was actually something that staff was looking for. The longer term agreement, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily play into it anyway. As the city could approve of this agreement as it is, and still plan to make a decision to plan for a new basin if council chose to do so. Entering into this agreement doesn't necessarily change your ability to decide to stay in this basin or to select a replacement basin. All those options remain. The agreement doesn't have to go for 25 years. Council could decide, or MID could decide to end it early by giving notice. Obviously, either party would prefer longer notice, but the agreement provides for 2 years.
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I make a supplemental point? This is Tommy.
No, Tommy, go right ahead.
So I have to say, I mean, this agreement really does not provide any benefit to MID. This is a partnership to allow the city to utilize a basin that we have for their stormwater uses at no cost. So I just want to make that point. This is for the benefit of the city. I'm struggling to find what the concern is.
Let me call on Councilman Robinson, who's been waiting for a little bit, and then we can circle back to that.
Yes, groundwater, surface water, conservation, all that plays in effect with having a longer agreement for this policy until 2028. I don't know why you want to shorten it and make it more work. And also, we recovered this a long time ago, especially when I was on the golf course ad hoc committee, and we need this groundwater for the golf course also. And the dirt, I don't know what the big deal about dirt is, but sooner or later we're gonna have to dig more recharging basins, and we're gonna need more dirt for different areas. So let's get this over with and get it out the way so we can go on to the next issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. I'm going to ask our city manager to chime in on a little bit of history as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. What I've heard this evening is that there's obviously some concerns in terms of the timing and what it means. It's a very complex issue, obviously, and I understand Tommy and Dina's position that right now this agreement does not cost the city because they're allowing us to use their basin free of charge. I think from the city's position, it's always the fear of the unknown. What if MID says, city, within 2 years you have to move out of the basin? And I think what you heard this evening is the city staff is concerned that if that were to occur, we would be in between a rock and a hard spot because we would have to buy property, we would have to find the funds to do so, and then we would have to excavate the dirt. Can that be done within a 2-year period? It would be very challenging to do that. Impossible? Probably not. Extremely, extremely difficult to pull off. However, at the same time, we've also heard from Tommy and Dina that that's not their intent. They are looking for a partnership. With that being said, I understand that there are some questions. Maybe this would be an opportunity for staff to refer this item back to staff, city staff, and Hilda. We'll get back with Tommy, make sure that we add some clarifying points in the staff report to make sure that the staff report is very clear. We understand that there's a couple of different moving parts, and I think some of the confusion came out this evening, and maybe the staff report could have, or future staff report can add some clarifying items on there to make sure that both that MID, that Hilda, and at the end of the day, the city council has a comfort level with what any language is in the agreement. That's not to say that that's the only approach, but that's simply one potential option this evening is to table the item to a future date. City staff, Keith and Hilda, will sit down with Tommy and Dina to make sure we have the precise language and that it's clear. And that's not to say that the language in the staff report today is unclear, but obviously we could potentially have some clarifying points to make sure that council has a comfort level with it. And so with that, I'll turn it over back to the council.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
I'm gonna go try to get that one.
I'm sorry, that was Keith. So Councilman Rodriguez has a question.
Yeah, I just have one last question with regards to recharge. So because we are in this mutual agreement, how do the credits for recharge apply here in this particular basin? Is it a 50-50 credit for recharge? Would Mr. Greasy or Keith be able to answer that?
So Keith may be changing computers.
Yes, Keith just stepped aside here for a second.
Okay, and so I'm not certain if either Tommy or Dina can provide some insight on that. Or if we should...
And I apologize in advance if I butchered that last name. Greasy, is that correct?
It's Gracie, but
Gracie, I'm sorry. Thank you. Appreciate that.
So the water that we bring in through the cooperation agreement, it would still be MID's surface water that we are recharging. The city utilizes it as a stormwater basin, so disposal of the stormwater, which is separate from a recharge effort of surface water.
So just to clarify again, the city would not have any rechargeable credits. It would be MID, correct?
Unless the city were to purchase surface water and utilize that purchased by the city.
Thank you, Tommy.
Alicia, do we have any public comment on this particular item?
Yeah.
No. So I'll bring it back to council for direction on this item.
So I would like to second Councilmember Garcia's motion to table this with the, coupling that with the remarks that our city manager said. Bring this back, refer it back to council, and then go ahead and talk again to Mr. Gracie, and then bring this back to us at a later date.
My apologies, I didn't hear Mayor Pro Tem's original motion. So was that a second to what you had said, Mayor Pro Tem, or Councilman Montes, did you just make a motion?
No, that was the motion he had made. So I was going to second it when Councilmember Gallegos continued the comment.
Okay, let me, whoever made the motion, let me ask if you can restate that motion so we're clear on what we're doing.
I, Mayor Pro Tem, make a motion to table this and direct staff to come back with us for more information.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Garcia and seconded by Councilman Montes to table this item and bring it back at a later date. I'm not sure if we're specific on a date or if we're just going to bring it back at a later date once staff can provide further information after meeting with representatives of MID.
Yes, sir. That's it.
Correct. Yeah, so we'll try to bring this back to the next meeting. However, I definitely can't speak on behalf of Keith, Hilda, or Dino or Tommy, obviously, without knowing their schedules. And so can we try to meet as soon as possible? And if we can do it at the next meeting, which would be August the 19th, we'll bring it back. But if not, as soon as possible, if that's okay.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much for that. And moving on into item D3, again, this is a project cooperation agreement between the City of Madera and Madera Irrigation District regarding the golf course basins.
Do you see it correctly?
Yes.
Okay, I'm working from Randy's computer at the moment, so it's.
So we see your screen, Keith, but you still have to start the presentation.
I'm sorry, say again?
Can you start the presentation?
I thought I did.
We're seeing your monitor, but not the presentation format.
I'm going to start over again. That.
Should do some double click on it.
Better?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we'll start into this one. This is item D3. This is for the project cooperation agreement between the City of Madera and Madera Irrigation District on the golf course basins. The purpose of this agreement is to expand coordination and collaboration between the city and MID with the following goals: balance the demand on the water table, and the aquifer in general. Expands on it assists in expanding on projects that are already contained in our groundwater sustainability plan. We have two projects in the GSP. That's completion of the water meters within the city, which we have a project coming up here in a few months. We were actually awarded a grant to go ahead and finish off those meters, as well as the Berry Basin, which is also a joint project between the city and MID. The successful examples already in place that do this type of thing is, again, the Berry Basin, and also a county basin that's north of Alice and east of Country Club. We have two examples. This can represent a third. The projects that we're talking about are the existing golf course storm drain basin at Road 23 and Avenue 16 and a water hazard. This particular map here shows the areas that we're discussing. Storm drainage basin is an existing basin on Avenue 16 and Road 23. MID, as part of the agreement, would construct a pipe to go ahead and drop water into this basin. In addition to that, the water hazard in this area would also be utilized to go ahead and provide for groundwater recharge. That particular basin would be filled through use of a new connection on Cleveland Avenue into the golf course system. The water would ultimately flow to this location. Both of these represent recharge for the city and the county in general. If MID drops water into this, we would share the benefits of that groundwater recharge 50-50. Additional details on it were the basin Road 23. We recommend, we need to go ahead and put that portion of the agreement on hold. This basin we've talked about it with MID for quite a few years, and there was never really an opportunity to go ahead and use that particular storm drainage basin because the FAA indicated that given the potential for birds landing on that and taking off, they could potentially represent a hazard to aircraft. So it's only in the last, only recently with discussions of the closure of the east-west runway that this potentially became a possibility. However, FAA still does have some concerns with regard to it in that if it's within 5,000 feet of aircraft operations, they recommend that it not be used. And by recommend, I take it as they won't allow for it. So we need FAA authorization. So if approved, our recommendation is that this not move forward until FAA gives us that authorization. And the city will be working towards obtaining that authorization from FAA. It's one of the things that we very much want to do, and we'll be looking to do that. As far as the golf course water hazard, there are no apparent concerns associated with that, and MID would be able to connect up to that effective immediately or following the agreement. The recommended action tonight is adopt a resolution approving the project cooperation agreement between the city and MID on the golf course basins. MID is still online, I believe, and they may wish to add something to this discussion.
Thank you, Keith. Mr. Gracie or Ms. Nolan, I'm not sure if you'd like to add to Mr. Hellman's presentation.
No, I think Keith did a good job summarizing it. Again, this is an opportunity to partner with the city of Madera related to groundwater recharge. And I think there's some facilities that could be constructed there and kind of go off of our last partnerships that we had on some of the city's basins where we installed infrastructure, and we've already used those basins to recharge water within the city of Madera.
Thank you for your comments, Tommy. I'll ask my colleagues on council to have any questions on this particular item. If I can get the screen back, please.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. I'll ask our city clerk, do we have any written communication?
None received, Mayor.
None. And no attendees. So if there is no further questions or comments, I'll ask council for action on item D3.
Mr. Mayor, move to approve D3 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Montes and seconded by Councilman Robinson to approve item D3 as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gracie and Ms. Nolan for being with us this evening, and we look forward to having you come back again soon. Moving on to item D4, this is the second amendment to the city manager at will agreement. This report has been prepared at the direction of city council. Therefore, there is no staff recommendation. Council is asked to consider and determine whether to adopt the resolution approving the second amendment to the city manager's at will employment agreement. Ms. Montoy.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Before you for consideration is a resolution approving a second amendment to the city manager's employment agreement, which currently goes through December of 2021. Under the proposed agreement, the term would be extended by 3 years to December 3, 2024. And it would also include the extension of the severance language. The severance language provided for the first 3 years, and this would pretty much mirror the language from the first 3 years, but to cover the remainder of the agreement under the proposed extension. It also memorializes a merit increase due to the city manager's satisfactory performance to step B of the salary schedule for city manager, which is $193,953.74 per year. And that would be effective December 3, 2019. And that's based on the city practices of when the performance evaluations is conducted and when the step increase kicks in. Finally, it proposes to modify the health insurance benefits to provide the same city contribution and plan offerings as that which are offered to mid-management bargaining group. As to the financial impact, my understanding is that the step increase of which is equal to 5% is covered under the current budget. The modification to the health contribution will technically not change the city's contribution based on the employees' current enrollment selections. And finally, severance payments would only be triggered if there were termination without cause. And so that is pretty much my report. And under, as you know, under the government code, the city council is required to make an announcement as to what the proposed agreement covers. And so I would turn it over to the mayor to read the language under the announcement in this report to the city council, which pretty much mirrors what I've said, but to ensure that we're covering what the government code says, I would request that the mayor make that announcement. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Hilda. I will read that announcement first, and then I'll ask council if there's any questions. Pursuant to Government Code subsection 54953C3, prior to taking action on this item, the council must publicly announce a summary of the action being considered. If approved, the proposed amendment to the city manager's employment agreement will modify the existing agreement as follows. The agreement will be extended by 3 years to December 3rd, 2024. For years 3 through 6 of the agreement, the employee will be entitled to 6 months salary and health benefits severance if separated without cause. The city manager's salary will be increased one merit step due to satisfactory performance to step E of salary schedule M, range 587, which is $193,953.74 per year, effective on his merit anniversary date of December 3rd, 2019. And the health insurance language will be amended to provide the same city contribution and plan offerings as for city's mid-management personnel. With that, I will bring it back to council for any questions. I will ask our city clerk if anyone has emailed in any comment on this item.
No, Mayor.
So moved to approve.
Second.
Been moved by Councilman Hawley and seconded by Councilman Robinson. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
We can have a roll call vote, please, Alicia.
Councilmember Hawley,
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez,
No, and for the record, my no vote is in regards to the first two items of the agreement.
Councilmember Montes,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia,
No.
Councilmember Gallegos,
Oh, yes.
Councilmember Robinson,
Yes.
Mayor Magellan.
Yes.
That's 5 yes, 2 no, motion passes.
Thank you very much, Alicia, and thank you, members of the council, for approving this item. With that, we will move into administrative reports. Item E2, since we've already done item E1 earlier in the evening, item E2 is discussion on status and action taken on measures to mitigate the impacts of COVID-19.
Mr. Rodriguez, you're on mute.
Oh, I apologize for that. I just gave a great speech. So first of all, so the item before you is an informational item, and it's for council to provide city staff with further direction. I understand that some of these items are they're going to be repetitive from the last meeting. However, this is also for the benefit of the community at large. So can just to bring both council and the community up to speed, in an effort to minimize the exposure of COVID-19 to both our community and our city staff and our employees, we continue to limit access to city facilities. However, again, I do want to remind both council and the community that city facilities or city services continue to be provided. So we have not had any disruptions in either our sewer system or water system, our response to medical calls or first aid. However, the physical accessibility to our facilities continues to be closed, and again, that's simply to ensure that we are minimizing potential exposure to one another and our community at large. Per council direction, city staff has distributed the mask and the gloves that we received from the Sister City program, and obviously we're extremely grateful for that. And I know that our Chamber of Commerce has donated the donation to some of its members and to some of our downtown businesses. Our youth and our senior programs continue to be suspended. We are always looking for opportunities to start those programs again. But as the council and the community is aware, we are under the direction of the state of California that has provided some strict guidelines with how we operate. And we also continue to suspend both on and off-site trainings for city staff. However, there are some training opportunities that have gone online, and we're obviously encouraging city staff to attend those and to participate in those events. We've also suspended the utility shutoffs for non-payment and accrual of late fees. We started this, I want to say, 4 months ago. We continue that practice, and council may recall on June the 5th of this year, so a couple of months ago, 2 months ago, we also provided an automatic extension for the business license payments through October the 31st. And again, that was at council direction. We continue to explore different opportunities for telecommuting. We recently purchased an additional 20 computers, tablets to encourage our employees to telecommute. And so we continuously recalibrate those efforts to make sure that we're providing meaningful work. And at the same time, we're cognizant of our employees and their needs to make sure that they feel that they're safe while they're working. We've made video conferencing available to all the departments, and we continue to implement modified work schedules. We started that in the police department when the pandemic first started, or I wouldn't say when it first started, but when we started to experience some local cases around 4 months ago. And since then, we've modified a number of work schedules, primarily for our streets crew, our sewer and our water crews. And then we also have a city policy that we have no more than one city employee per vehicle. And again, the goal of that's to minimize potential exposure. As the council is aware, we've also made some modifications to our transit system, and bus fares are still waived. So if anyone would like to take the bus is free of charge. And again, the goal of that's to minimize the potential exposure by eliminating the exchange of cash, which, as we collectively know, has proven that it could potentially be infected with the virus. So with that, that's simply an update to the council and the community. And if council has any questions or any thoughts about additional action we should be taking, we would ask the council to simply let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Any questions regarding that update? Thank you again. We really appreciate that update and all the efforts that you, Mr. Rodriguez, and your team are taking to ensure that our employees and our residents in the city of Madera are as safe as possible.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. As you all are well aware, and correct me if I'm wrong in bringing this up during this time of the report regarding the COVID, my concern is that we are nowhere near done with COVID. I have no idea, I have no expertise as to the length that we're going to be facing this crisis in our country. I know other countries are feeling the same. We have a situation now where potentially the eviction notices or the moratorium on eviction notices are coming up. And we have no relief in place, as far as I can see, for either the business community who are suffering because the rents are not being paid and they still have to pay their bills, and our community. What do we do if we get eviction notices throughout the community of Madera and these folks have no place to go? So I just want to be able to come up into a conversation about what are we going to do? What can we do? What are the possibilities? And bringing this up so that we can have a discussion on this, because I'm frankly very concerned. And I really don't know what the answer is. So if you could just all put that into your thought processes and we could have a discussion in the future, I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Appreciate that. If there's nothing further on item E2, I'd like to move into council reports. But I'm going to ask this evening for a request that you allow me to go first this evening during council reports. Our city recently was turned upside down, if you will, shocked when it was reported that there was a little 2-year-old boy with special needs that was missing. And with COVID, as we just talked about, and the anxiety and the stress level in our community, this just really added to it. And it was a very, very difficult time. Our community came together. I mean, really, truly came together when the little boy was missing. Hundreds of people volunteered their time to search for little Thaddeus. They volunteered to cook and to take turns and to watch each other's children while they go out and search and look. And it was really heartwarming to see that in our community, but unfortunately, it was the worst possible news the day that young Thaddeus was discovered. And let me say at this time, I am so greatly appreciative of our Madera Police Department and their efforts, their unwavering efforts. They worked around the clock in partnership with the FBI and the U.S. Marshal Service and our local sheriff. And I want to also thank Chowchilla PD for pitching in. But our local police department did everything they could to bring justice for little Thaddeus, and we should all be very grateful and appreciative of them. But I was inspired. I was inspired about our community coming together. There was not a lot of people who knew young Thaddeus, but he was a little boy in Madera, and that's all that mattered. He was a little boy with special needs, and this community, without knowing him, loved him and cared for him, and they still want to love and care for him. And that inspired me. I think it inspired a lot of us as we come together during this very, very difficult time, when in some cases, depending on what topic you're discussing, there's a deep line in the sand, but not for little Thaddeus. We came together as a community. And that being said, I was inspired to think about the play structure we have at Centennial Park. This was a play structure like no other in the city of Madera. That is what's considered all-inclusive. It was a play structure built for children just like young Thaddeus ran, children with special needs. There's no obstacles, there's no steps, there's nothing to prevent a child, no matter what your needs are, from playing at this playground. I'm happy to say I met with some members in the community. There's been a lot of support from members in the community, and the effort have something in perpetuity that we can forever remember Thaddeus and all those children with special needs. I'm asking council for your support in bringing an item back on the August 19th meeting that would name that play structure after Thaddeus Ran. My suggestion would be the Thaddeus Ran playground at Centennial Park. And I'm going to ask each one of my colleagues this evening if they would support that and bring that back to the next council meeting so that we can vote upon it. Councilman Robinson, do I have your support with that? Thank you. Councilwoman Gallegos. Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for that. Councilman Hawley.
Well, Mr. Mayor, you know how I feel about kids. You know where my heart is at. I'll be more than glad to approve a project like that. That's what our city is about. Showing kids how much we still love them in spite of however things turn out. So yes, you do have my support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Councilman. Councilman Rodriguez.
Mr. Mayor, yes. I just want to make sure that we are requesting that we bring this back to the agenda, right? And support it then.
That's what I'm asking. This is simply support from council to put it on an agenda item for the August 19th meeting to then vote upon it. Thank you very much for your support. And Councilman Montes. Yeah. Thank you. And one last thing in closing, and thank you all very, very much for your support for this. And I myself and the community look forward to having a discussion and approval on the August 19th meeting. But let us also be aware of domestic violence. Let us also be aware of possible abuse or neglect. In no way, shape, or form does this mean this is the one and only case. There are so many other cases out there. And let us take this opportunity to be aware of that. And during this time, again, with COVID, where we want to stay safe and stay home, let's also stay connected with those friends, loved ones, coworkers, neighbors, to check in on them. And let's also hope and pray that this never happens again. So again, I thank you all very, very much for your support and your patience and for letting me go first this evening. And with that, I will now ask Councilman Robinson for his report. You're on mute, sir.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gallegos.
I just want to say that we have awesome people here in the city of Madera, and all our city employees are awesome. Everybody has stepped up and it's been amazing. I've had people come that aren't from this community and hearing and seeing what we're doing, and they are just astonished at what happens here in the city of Madera. So thank all of you and the community for all that you do.
Agree more. We're truly blessed. Thank you very much for those comments. Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hawley.
Yes, I do have a thing to report. To let you know, for the next 2 weeks, I will be missing in action at our meetings. Next week is going to be a real trying week. And the following week, taking a little time off for my family. So thank you for all your prayers and concerns and, condolences. So I'll just shouting out to you guys right now that I'll be missing the next couple of meetings. Thank you.
You may not be here in body, Mr. Councilman, but you're definitely going to be here in spirit and you'll be in our hearts. Again, our prayers go out to you and your family. Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dillon. I just want to go back to the presentation that Sarah Boss presented earlier today from the County Public Health in regards to the spike in numbers. Although the city doesn't necessarily mandate a mask, I would really strongly encourage people to take that into consideration, especially when visiting businesses and/or gatherings. I think the president of the Taiwan Chamber of Commerce certainly said it best that their population of 23 million has only 423 cases. So I think that if we take an approach similar to that, I know the demographics laid out for us today certainly show that there's a lot of Latino populations that are getting affected. By now, I know one of you or many of you know someone that's probably been affected and has deceased because of it. So I hope that we really take precautions with this, and we really start encouraging people to use the mask more and more so. We haven't got to the point where it's mandated, but certainly encouraging to use it more and more so that we can get those numbers down and have our businesses open again so that we can thrive. My comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Councilman, and I totally agree. I'll say it again. I will wear a mask for you if you wear a mask for me and for our loved ones. Thank you very much for those comments. Councilman Montes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to the comments or agree with Councilmember Rodriguez about the mask. It's very important that we take care of each other and we look out for each other. One of the things that happened this week, Councilmember Gallegos and I did get to meet with some community members regarding the Thaddeus Saran outpouring and a wish to do something for this young child that lost his life. One of the things that I asked, and I don't know if that's something that we can also do, was increase awareness, advocacy for issues like domestic violence, like child abuse, mental health, and just don't forget that that should be a component of what we're doing for him as well. So, and those are my comments. I mean, there was a lot of people that wanted to talk about that, wanted to do something. I think that's something that we can do, not only doing murals or naming the parks, but actually increasing that advocacy. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman, and I agree 100%. If you remember, more than once we had Alexandria or Alex Boateng has made a presentation at City Council, and she talked about maternal mental health and really brought to light some of the facts. Her and her team reached out to me recently as well on just that component, and we're trying to put a roundtable discussion together that we bring awareness to domestic violence, violence in the home, and really these numbers are eye-opening. So this absolutely must be a component of that. Awareness has to be a component of that, and I couldn't agree with you more. Thank you very much for your comments. If there's nothing further, we have no closed session this evening. I want to thank everybody again for your patience. I think the over and under was about 10 o'clock, and we're just under that just a little bit. So stay safe, everybody. Stay home and stay connected, and please wear a mask. With that, meeting adjourned until the next regular scheduled meeting, which is August 19th. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.